Chapter 488. How did Mao Yonglan's body appear under the Lan family's villa? Song Yanqing listened to Qiao Jin's explanation and asked the key question. According to the method at that time, Lan Shengbin should have been protected by an array master. How could Mao Yonglan have a chance? Qiao Jin thought for a moment. It depends on the time the police investigate. I think Mao Yonglan's body was not buried under the Lan family's villa 20 years ago, but moved there in recent years. This kind of thing is probably done by someone Mao Yonglan trusted. This kind of interpersonal relationship is something that needs to be investigated. She could see the general situation of the Lan family. The complicated entanglements during this period were information that modern technology needed to investigate, which was also information that the police needed to investigate. The results might come out soon. Song Yanqing, okay, I thank you for this on behalf of the Su family. Qiao Jin, you're welcome. Sunan paid for it. The 99999 was not paid for nothing. Song Yanqing laughed in a low voice. I heard that your online account was blocked. Qiao Jin didn't care. Yes, probably because they think I'm blocking their way to make money. Song Yanqing couldn't help but laugh. You don't have to worry about this. The account will be unblocked soon. However, if you're too accurate, many people will indeed target you. That's different. My fortune-telling is useful. Xu Rong and Ming Chu only appeared in fortune-telling. Sometimes, unexpected surprises often appeared. Therefore, Qiao Jin was still enthusiastic about fortune-telling. Since Song Yanqing could solve her account problem, she expressed her gratitude to Song Yanqing. He was really a good person. She owed him another favor. After hanging up the phone, Qiao Jin felt a special aura in the Mu family's house. She opened the door and saw that Mu Qiji's blind date had come to visit. The other party's surname was Hu, and she was also a spiritual reader. Her arrival would attract Qiao Jin's attention. Lil Wan, sit here. Qiao Fei warmly welcomed Mu Qiji's blind date. Qiao Jin took a look and didn't go down casually. Mu Qiji, Qiao Fei, and Mu Xiangshan were all there. She didn't like this kind of occasion. Qiao Jin gently closed the door. Mu Qiji sat beside Hu Wan and gently took a sip of coffee. He looked up and said softly, Mom, should we ask Jin to come down and see Xiao Wan? Sure, your sister is cooped up in her room all day, and I don't know what she's doing. Aren't you afraid that something will happen to her? Qiao Fei responded quickly and prepared to call Qiao Jin. Mu Xiangshan said unhurriedly, they have their own things to do. How do you know that they have nothing to do when you're idle all day long? Qiao Fei felt wronged. I just wanted her to come down and see Xiaowan. After all, she could be their future sister-in-law. How could they not meet her? The dignified and generous Hu Wan was curious. Is she Qiji's sister? Qiao Fei smiled and nodded. Yes, it's summer vacation now. She's staying at home. I'll go up and call her. Qiao Fei went upstairs and knocked on Qiao Jin's door. Qiao Jin opened the door and Qiao Fei said, Jin, your brother's girlfriend is here. Go down and say hello. She's your future sister-in-law after all. Qiao Jin blinked and smiled. Have they confirmed their relationship? Qiao Fei coughed. Even if they haven't confirmed it, it's not far off. After all, it was a blind date. There was a layer of meaning in it. Now was the final stage of communication. If they got along well, it would be a success. Chapter 489. Qiao Jin didn't say anything and only said, okay, I'll go down and take a look. After saying that, he followed Qiao Fei down. When Hu Wan saw Qiao Fei leading the girl down, her eyes lit up. This girl really gave people a rare feeling of amazement. It wasn't that kind of beauty, but that kind of exquisite face coupled with an otherworldly aura. It was really rare. Even if she was wearing ordinary home clothes, there would always be a kind of smoke-like aura, as if it was impossible to grasp and feel. She wanted people to protect her, but they couldn't bear to touch her. It was probably the popular saying nowadays, beautiful like a little fairy. Thinking of this, Hu Wan smiled. This is Qiji's sister, right? She's really beautiful and talented. Auntie, your family's genes are so excellent, they all take after you and uncle. Xiao Fei was happy with the beautiful words and smiled. Xiao Wan really knows how to talk. Come, Jin, this is Hu Wan, your brother's girlfriend. Xiao Jin blinked. Miss Hu, hello. Hu Wan stood up and stretched out her hand. Hello, Jin. Hu Wan was beautiful, the kind of dignified, beautiful, and generous kind that almost made people feel that if they married her, she would be able to hold up the scene with the kind of noble aura of jewelry. It was also because of this that this kind of girl also gave people a strong feeling when she was not married. She was quite compatible with Mu Qizhi. Unfortunately, Xiao Jin had seen Mu Qizhi's marriage line. It was a marriage line that he met someone and decided to be with her for life. There was no process in between. Since this Hu Wan wasn't the right person for him, the two of them would probably break up soon because of differences. What differences would there be? She just smiled and of course wouldn't say much. She shook hands with Hu Wan, and it was smooth to the bone. Hu Wan felt that her skin was already very good. She carefully took care of it every day, and her skin could be said to be white and smooth. However, when she came into contact with Xiao Jin, she really understood what it meant to be weak and boneless. He couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, those who were favored by the heavens were perfect in every way. Xiao Jin didn't like to talk, so he sat down and chatted with Hu Wan and the others. Most of the time, it was Hu Wan and Xiao Fei who were chatting. Mu Qizhi and Mu Xiangshan would occasionally speak. Xiao Jin simply didn't interrupt. She didn't have any other reaction and just listened quietly. Hu Wan quickly noticed that this girl didn't like to talk much. Putting aside the fact that Xiao Jin was the young lady of the Mu family, she remembered that she seemed to have heard the name Xiao Jin somewhere. It was a little familiar, but she couldn't remember where. At noon, Hu Wan stayed for lunch. Xiao Jin also received some news about the Lan family. After investigating the body buried under the Lan family's villa, there was a final identification result. The person had indeed been dead for about 20 years. However, according to the identification marks on the bones, the police concluded that the body should have been dug up after being buried and moved to the Lan family's villa. As for who did it, it needed to be investigated. In the past 10 years, the Lan family's villa had been renovated more than a dozen times, and there were hundreds of workers who had handled it. It had to be said that it wasn't a small project to investigate the traces and screen out so many people who were most likely to do this kind of thing. The main thing was that too much time had passed, and the person might have run far away. Now that Lan Shengbin was also dead, the Lan family's case was a little similar to the Nameless case. Chapter 490. After all, there was too much strange information involved in this case, especially the skin changing and curse changing. The spirit group had taken over this case, but they did not know about the existence of a formation master, so they could not investigate clearly. At most, they would think that it was the work of a sorcerer who was good at curses. This case could either be concluded in a reasonable way, or they could only continue investigating. As for when the results would come out, it was none of Xiao Jin's business. After solving the problem of the Su Xiu, she had completed her task. At the dinner table, Hu Wan was able to make Xiao Fei happy with just a few words, which made Mu Xiangshan very satisfied. Hu Wan was very good at these kinds of occasions, and it was obvious that she could easily win the favor of the elders. Xiao Jin did not think that there was anything wrong with her, so he did not care about her relationship with Mu Qizhi. Whether there was fate or not, it was all up to nature. After dinner, Hu Wan had to leave because she had something to do. Instead, Xiao Fei asked for Xiao Jin's opinion. Jin, what do you think of Miss Hu? Mu Xiangshan glanced at Xiao Fei. What does Qiji's relationship have to do with her? Xiao Jin nodded. Yes, Qiji's relationship has nothing to do with me. It depends on what Qiji thinks, not what I think. Then the onlooker sees the game more clearly. Xiao Fei was just casually asking. I have to ask for the opinions of my family. I think Miss Hu is good. If you think she is good, I want to find a time to let Qiji and her get engaged. I think your brother won't object. Xiao Jin was a little pensive. Do you all make arrangements so quickly? They had only met for a few days, but they were already getting engaged. What do you know? Your brother is already 25. Oh, Qiji and Song Yanqing were the same age? However, Mu Qiji looked more mature than Song Yanqing. Probably because he was tortured by his family. However, Mu Qiji was 25 years old this year, while Qiao Fei was 43 years old. He was almost 44 years old. Qiao Jin silently raised his head. Fei Fei, when you gave birth to Qiji, you weren't even of marriageable age? Qiao Fei, Mu Xiangshan coughed, then sneered. Qiao Fei wished he could bury his head in the bowl. She blushed a little. At that time, I was too young and ignorant. Actually, that era didn't pay much attention to these things. If Qiao Fei hadn't met Mu Zhenming, she would probably have gotten married much earlier. Oh, Qiao Jin said meaningfully. Qiao Fei blushed. What do you know? You're only 20 years old. What are you thinking about all day? Although there were some twists and turns in the process, in any case, it was still official. Just then, Mu Qiji came back. Seeing the strange atmosphere in the room, he asked, "What are you talking about?" "Nothing, nothing." Qiao Fei immediately changed the topic. "You sent Xiaowan home? Why didn't you send Xiaowan home?" Mu Qiji glanced at Qiao Fei and seemed a little helpless. She has her own things to do in the afternoon. She drove here anyway. Mom, you don't have to be so anxious. Qiao Fei coughed dryly. I'm not anxious. You guys seem to have a good relationship. Tell me the truth. How do you feel about Xiaowan? She thought about it and said, don't think it's too much. Your dad and I won't force you. It's mainly up to you. They were open-minded parents. They definitely wouldn't force their child to marry into the family. Chapter 491. She's fine. Mu Qiji said calmly, she should be fine too. Qiao Fei was a little confused. What do you mean by fine? Can't you tell if you like her or not? Mu Qiji glanced at Qiao Fei but did not say anything. Mu Xiangshan said, why are you in such a hurry? Although everyone praises Hu Wan, she has been abroad for a long time. You should let Qiji know more about her. Qiao Fei muttered, then you two can go ahead. Mom is not in a hurry. I don't think Hu Wan likes me that much. Mu Qiji's sudden words made Qiao Fei a little confused. Mu Qiji simply made it clear. She should be here at the request of her family. It will take some time to find out if she is suitable. Although both parties were here at the request of their families, Mu Qiji did not feel much pressure. On the other hand, Hu Wan should be under more pressure from her family. It wasn't like someone like Mu Qiji couldn't sense it. Mu Xiangshan suddenly sighed. It seems that blind dates are not advisable. What did your sister say? She said that your marriage line has not appeared yet. It seems that Hu Wan is not the one you like. Your feelings are probably right. Hu Wan does not like you. Qiao Fei wanted to roll his eyes. Dad, I told you not to do such superstitious things at home. Why are you still messing around with Jin? Mu Qiji also laughed and said, Grandpa, this kind of thing depends on a person's choice. It can't be predicted. Jin, you should also read less of those things on the internet. Look at how much of a fraud he was now. Qiao Jin wiped his mouth with a tissue. Qiji is right. I'll go up first. Qiao Fei, sigh, everyone in this family was incomparably terrible. In the afternoon, Qiao Jin was at home, but Qiao Fei went upstairs to look for her. He said with some doubt, there's an old couple downstairs looking for you. Qiao Jin's face was very gloomy at that time, and even Qiao Fei could tell that she was unhappy. Qiao Fei asked cautiously, what's wrong? Qiao Jin quickly regained his composure and said, it's fine. Fei Fei, go to your room. Why would I go to the room? What did you do outside? Of course, Qiao Fei was worried. She followed Qiao Jin downstairs and saw an elderly couple waiting in the living room. The old couple looked a little uneasy, but when they saw Qiao Jin, they pointed at her excitedly and shouted, murderer, murderer. Qiao Fei was stunned. She ran in front of the old couple and blocked Qiao Jin. Who are you calling a murderer? The old couple had been polite when they came to the door. Who would have thought that they would directly call Qiao Jin a murderer? Were they crazy? How could Jin have killed someone? Qiao Jin looked at the old couple's agitated expression and remained silent. The old woman pointed at him and shouted, "You killed my son and my daughter-in-law. You are not human." The other old man also looked at Qiao Jin with tears in his eyes. His eyes, without exception, showed that Qiao Jin seemed to have done something unforgivable. The servants in the house were all stunned. One of them hurriedly went to inform the old man who was still at home. Xiao Fei almost fainted. "Don't slander me. Housekeeper, ask them to leave. This is a pair of lunatics." In Xiao Fei's eyes, they pointed at Qiao Jin and shouted that she was a murderer. If they were not lunatics, what were they? Just as the housekeeper was about to take action, Qiao Jin shouted, "Wait." Chapter 492. Qiao Jin walked in front of the old couple and said gently, "Give it to me." Xiao Fei was afraid that the old couple would do something to her. He quickly pulled her and said nervously, "Jin, they are crazy." Qiao Jin shook her head. The strange thing was that the agitated old couple couldn't do anything when they saw Qiao Jin. They even took out a document from their pocket in a daze. Qiao Jin took it and opened it. It was information about the suspect in the murder case. The police couldn't have leaked such information because it was accurate. The only thing wrong was that Wang Yanwei's name was changed to Qiao Jin. That's right. The old couple were the parents of the newlywed couple. They were shocked when they found out that their son and daughter-in-law were dead. They went around begging for help. They knew that the police had caught the suspect, but they couldn't get any information. In the end, they asked someone to help them get this document. However, they didn't know that it was fake. They only remembered that the person in the document was Qiao Jin. There was no doubt as to who had done this. Qiao Jin didn't get angry after reading it. He still smiled calmly. Very good. The Wanyan family was quite good at turning a dragon into a phoenix. She handed the document back to the old couple and said coldly, "I already know who asked you to come. I'm not the one who killed your son. Now, go back and take care of your granddaughter. Pretend that nothing happened. The person who killed your son will naturally get retribution." The old couple was stunned. After hearing this, they turned and left. Because this was the Mu family, Qiao Jin didn't want Xiao Fei and the rest to worry and cause more trouble. Seeing them leave, Xiao Fei was confused. "What's going on? What did you just say?" Qiao Jin said calmly, "Nothing. Their son was killed. They are looking for the murderer, but they found the wrong person. I'm not the person they are looking for." They were too excited and saw the wrong information. This matter could have been slowly resolved, but the Wanyan clan had actually come to the Mu clan. Xiao Fei almost fainted. "How can it be so scary? Pointing at you the moment you came down, isn't this a little too biased? And they even came to our house." Mu Xiangshan also received the news and rushed over. When he saw Qiao Fei and Qiao Jin, he directly asked, "What happened?" Qiao Jin repeated what he said just now. Mu Xiangshan immediately understood that something was wrong. When he saw Qiao Fei here, he looked at him meaningfully but did not ask anything. After Qiao Jin finished speaking to them, he left the Mu family. Song Yanqing also received the news. Ardan quickly reported the news about Qiao Jin. At that time, Song Yanqing was at home discussing matters with his father. He heard Ardan come over and say to him, "Young master, something bad seems to have happened to Miss Qiao." An old couple said that Miss Qiao is a murderer and went to her house. Song Yanqing, who had been smiling while talking to his father, froze. The smile on his face gradually faded. Song Shuiyin was confused. Why would Miss Qiao do something like this? When he went to pick up Qiao Jin last time, he only knew that the Wanyan clan had framed her. This time, he thought it was something else. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes slightly. "The Wanyan clan's matter?" Ardan nodded. "I don't know where they got fake evidence to frame Miss Qiao." Song Yanqing immediately smiled. It was still a stunningly gentle smile. "Very good." Chapter 493. When Qiao Jin just arrived outside, she received a call from Song Yanqing. "Where are you?" His tone was very gentle, as if he was just asking a normal question. Qiao Jin said warmly, "Outside." Song Yanqing said, "I'm coming to find you now. Tell me where you are. I know what you want to do. You don't need to do anything. You will use the most reasonable way to not let the Mu family have any doubts about you." Song Yanqing knew that the Mu family now didn't know what Qiao Jin was. But Qiao Jin definitely wanted to protect her family. Looking at her attitude, Song Yanqing could see it. Qiao Jin understood. She quickly raised her eyebrows and said, "Don't worry, I don't plan to do anything." She wasn't impatient. She had seen all kinds of things over the years. The Wanyan family was not as shameless as the Feng family. Moreover, they had already been involved in karma. The more they did this kind of thing, the more the Wanyan family would suffer. She came out because she didn't want Xiao Fei to keep asking. At that time, she would suspect something even if she didn't. Mu Qizhi and the others were at home. Song Yanqing, "Okay, you just need to tell me where you are. I will take you to dinner tonight." Qiao Jin told Song Yanqing her current address and found a place to sit down. Song Yanqing would come to pick her up later. She knew that Song Yanqing had made a move. Because she received a message from He Yarrow. He Yarrow, Wanyan Wei and Wanyan Shi were taken away. Just as Song Yanqing said, this kind of thing had to be solved in the most reasonable way. The Song family could also use the methods used by the Wanyan family. They tried to hide it because of their special status in the spirit group. This time, Song Yanqing directly used the identity of the Song family to make a move personally. The police already had the evidence. The evidence of Wanyan Wei's murder was clear. This time, they arrested her again and couldn't let her go. Wanyan Shi was arrested because he forged evidence to help Wanyan Wei. This matter naturally shook the Wanyan clan. However, knowing that it was the Song family who had made a move, he hesitated. The spirit group was also shaken, mainly because of Wanyan Shi's special identity. In any case, he was in charge of the spirit group and was one of the few ordinary people who knew about the existence of spiritual readers. Now that he had been captured and the Wanyan family was pressuring him, there was bound to be an internal dispute. When Song Yanqing picked up Qiao Jin, she was sitting quietly in a park. She was surrounded by parents who brought their children to play. She rested her chin on her hand as she watched the children play with the slide and various toys. She didn't feel out of place when she was among them. She had a gentle and obedient appearance and an otherworldly temperament, making her unforgettable. He sat there quietly, forming a world of his own. It was an unforgettable tranquility. This was a beautiful picture, and a beautiful Song Yanqing couldn't bear to destroy it. Before he spoke, Qiao Jin had already sensed his presence. He turned his head and saw the car coming. He walked over. The car window rolled down. The appearance of the person in the car was equally breathtaking. He inadvertently attracted the attention of the children nearby. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin and smiled gently. "Get in. I'm here to pick you up." Qiao Jin smiled at him and nodded. He opened the car door and got in. A child saw Song Yanqing. He drooled and shouted, "Pretty brother." This shout was drowned out by the closed car window. The children began to laugh without restraint and went back to playing with their own toys. Chapter 494. Wanyan Wei and Wanyan Shi were arrested. "Did you ask someone to do it?" In the car, Qiao Jin asked directly. Song Yanqing nodded and said softly, "They don't know how to appreciate kindness." "Don't you think so?" Qiao Jin said, "A little." She could have let them wait for death, but she didn't expect them to want to die early. Changing the information to frame Qiao Jin and letting the old couple find her was something that Qiao Jin didn't expect. The guts of the Wanyan family were truly too big. Song Yanqing also smiled. "My father just received a call from the spirit group, but he's already on a plane to go abroad." When she received the call, Song Xian knew that her son was going to take care of this matter. He said that he didn't know anything and that he was going abroad on a business trip. He didn't care about anything. He just called Song Yanqing and went on the plane. Qiao Jin didn't care. Two useless people aren't worthy of the Wanyan family's attention. If all the families of spiritualists are at this level, To be honest, I'm quite disappointed. Song Yanqing also nodded and said, don't worry about this. It's not worth worrying about these people. I'll take you to eat first. Qiao Jin said, okay. Later, Qiao Fei called. Qiao Jin happened to have an excuse and said that Song Yanqing took her to eat. Seeing that she was fine, Qiao Fei naturally didn't ask more. But Mu Zhanming and the others in the family all knew about this matter. They sent people to investigate the old couple and naturally found out what had happened. They didn't know about the existence of the spirit group, but it was easy to find out that the police had already caught the suspect, but she was released. Qiao Jin didn't go out much these days. If the police arrested her, how could there be no sound? It was obvious that the old couple had found the wrong person. The Mu family was slightly relieved. After Wanyan she was arrested, the spirit group discussed and came up with a plan. Wanyan she couldn't be ignored. There were orders from the Wanyan family. Young Master Song couldn't be touched, but Qiao Jin couldn't be left alone. So they decided to capture Qiao Jin. At least, they had to make Qiao Jin guarantee that Song Yanqing would release Wanyan Shi. As for Wanyan Wei, it was difficult for the spirit group. They could only let the Wanyan family find their own connections. However, the task of capturing Qiao Jin was given to He Yaro's group. When she received the task, she was confused. Her mind was filled with thoughts of which genius leader had given the order. This is. Isn't this a good thing? She is so arrogant, we should have dealt with her long ago. He Yaro frowned. Let me ask you, even if Qiao Jin is arrogant, which rule of the spirit group did she break? Yu Xie was speechless. He couldn't find a reason, so he just stubbornly said, she's always been our suspect. We've been relaxed enough with her. He Yaro coldly snorted and no longer spoke to Yu Xie. Instead, she spoke to the executive officer, if you want us to arrest Qiao Jin, you should at least give us a clear order. Which rule of the spirit group did Qiao Jin violate? She didn't use her own ability to mess around outside. She didn't kill anyone. This time, it was the Wanyan family who killed someone and wanted to frame her. Now that she has been caught, they want to capture her and trap her. Is this how the spirit group bends the law? Ever since Qiao Jin told her the truth, she had a faint resentment towards the higher-ups of the spirit group. Chapter 495. This was because sometimes, hiding the truth could cost the lives of innocent members of the spirit group. If they encountered a spiritual reader who might be an array master or a spiritual reader, they would only die. The executive officer was unhappy with He Yaro's questioning. This is an order from above. Are you going to refuse to carry it out? He Yaro replied, we can't accept it if there are no precise rules. Yu Xie was a little angry. Captain, are you crazy? Are you not going to listen to the orders of the spirit group? Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai were dumbfounded. The two of them really didn't know what was going on. At the same time, they felt that it was inconceivable that their captain would refuse to carry out this mission. However, they knew that their captain had a good relationship with Qiao Jin in private. They had met several times. Lan Xiaoni held He Yaro's hand and bit on her lollipop. She had an ignorant look on her face. The executive officer waved his hand. He Yaro, it's useless to be stubborn with me. This isn't an order from me. You just have to carry it out according to the rules. We already know that you have a good relationship with Qiao Jin. You have to consider some things carefully. If you don't carry it out, you don't have to keep your position as captain. Your identity will be temporarily sealed and you will be replaced by Yu Xie. He Yaro didn't care. Do whatever you want. She didn't want to be involved in this matter. Compared to going against Qiao Jin, she wanted to see if Yu Xie would die quickly enough. Yu Xie didn't expect the executive officer to directly remove He Yaro from her position as captain. His eyes flashed. The executive officer looked at He Yaro's stubborn expression and snorted. He removed He Yaro from her position as captain and let Yu Xie continue to lead the team to carry out this mission. He then left. After he left, Yu Xie looked at He Yaro and said, Captain, you don't have any reason to object. We just want to capture Qiao Jin and not do anything to her. This is an order from the higher-ups. Even if she finds out, she won't blame you. He Yarrow sneered at him. You can be quite naive sometimes. You should know what the Wanyan family is like. If they abuse their power now, the roots of the spirit group will be destroyed by them sooner or later. Even an ordinary person from the Wanyan family can kill someone without any responsibility just because her family is a spiritual reader family. Do you think that the spirit group, which maintains the stability of human society, still needs to exist? Yu Xie was stunned. His tone softened. I understand what you mean, but this is an order from above. We are just members, and we can only obey. Waving her hand, He Yarrow replied in annoyance, I can refuse to listen to you, but you're the captain now. You guys can go by yourselves. She looked at Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai. Sure, Dai is in class. She won't be going on this mission. You guys go ahead. Nothing will happen. Yu Xie said, Captain, I know that you have a good relationship with her, so I can only give you a piece of advice. You should stay here and don't think about leaking information. Lan Xiaoni, I want to take her with me. After all, Lan Xiaoni was a space-type magus. She was very powerful, so he had to bring her along. Lan Xiaoni was a little unhappy when she heard that. She pursed her lips and said, I won't go if Godmother doesn't go. Yu Xie, He Yarrow said, the three of you are enough. Qiao Jin doesn't have any combat strength either, so what are you afraid of? Yu Xie, why did he suddenly feel that He Yarrow was lying to him? Chapter 496. Yu Xie could only grit his teeth and say, do whatever you want. Then, he left with Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai. Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai looked at He Yarrow hesitantly and said, Captain, wait for us here. Then, they left with Yu Xie. Lan Xiaoni asked quietly, Godmother, are they going to catch Sister Qiao? He Yarrow nodded, her expression serious. It's fine if Sister Qiao doesn't come back with us. If she does, something big will happen to the spirit group. Because they were in the base, she couldn't send any messages outside. She didn't know where Qiao Jin was now. He should have known about this by now, right? The spirit group had thought it through and sent people to catch Qiao Jin. However, Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing were eating when he said something softly. Something happened. Song Yanqing looked up slightly. Qiao Jin said, the array masters of the He Li family came to the imperial capital and attacked the spirit group. It seems like the imperial capital will not be peaceful for a while. Qiao Jin could feel it even though he was so far away. Naturally, it was because the commotion was too big. With such a large number of array masters, Qiao Jin felt it the moment he got off the plane. There were dozens of people, plus the 7 who died earlier. The He Li family had indeed invested a lot. Array masters weren't that common. The hundreds of spiritual readers in the spirit group were the result of decades of accumulation and slowly formed into the current scale. There were so many people in the country, but only a few hundred of them could be found. The corresponding array masters were even rarer, and there were also the legendary spiritual readers. So far, Qiao Jin had only met Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing smiled. You have a lot more spiritual seeds. Ah, speaking of which, Qiao Jin reached out and touched Song Yanqing's wrist. I haven't collected your death energy for this month. Compared to before, Qiao Jin was more familiar this time. Song Yanqing glanced at him and smiled. You always say that I still have death energy on me. Compared to before, I feel like I have changed a lot. In the past, Song Yanqing's body was really weak. It wasn't an exaggeration. He wasn't like those sick people who panted with every step. He couldn't be stimulated. Things like a cold could take away half his life. Now that he had become a spirit master of speech, Qiao Jin said that his death aura was still there, but his physical fitness was also changing at a visible rate. He was no longer comparable to before. Now that he only brought Dan out, his father would be much more at ease. Qiao Jin said indifferently, the fact that you are changing now proves one point. The life of the array master who swapped your life providence is getting weaker and weaker. He's already at the point where he's barely holding on. Once he dies, you will slowly recover, but the providence that was snatched away from you will still be snatched away. So it needed to be changed back. Song Yanqing nodded. Ferdinand has a trip in the capital next month. An advertiser spent 100 million to invite him to shoot an advertisement. 100 million? Qiao Jin couldn't help but sigh. That's really valuable. That's how celebrities are, especially when he's a foreign celebrity. From a businessman's point of view, Song Yanqing commented. He's very popular and has fanatical fans. His ability to drive purchases is strong. If the business pays 100 million, it will definitely make a billion. Qiao Jin nodded. I didn't pay attention to him. It was mainly because he was abroad. Qiao Jin hadn't planned to go there yet. He didn't expect the other party to come. It was normal for Song Yanqing to pay attention to him. Monthly votes third update. Chapter 497. This was also something new. It was impossible for Ferdinand's family not to know that the capital was the Song family's territory. Coming here with such fanfare, Qiao Jin speculated, maybe Ferdinand really doesn't know that his life has been swapped. Song Yanqing narrowed his eyes slightly. You think so? Qiao Jin nodded. He doesn't know, but his family should know. You're not dead. They must know that there's an array master supporting you in the capital. It's not a good time for Ferdinand to come here alone. If he knew, he wouldn't throw away his life. The only possible speculation is that he doesn't know, and his family can't tell him. Song Yanqing smiled gently. If a good enough person knows that his life providence was stolen, it will indeed be difficult for him to accept it. He stared at Qiao Jin. What will happen to him if his life providence is swapped? He will suffer some backlash. The difference is how much the array master is willing to bear for him. According to your body, his physical fitness before the swap shouldn't be too good. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been so weak back then. There was a special emotion in Song Yanqing's deep eyes. Will he die? Qiao Jin, that won't happen. Everything depends on the line of fate. Even if he dies, it only means that he should have died. Song Yanqing chuckled. It sounds like he's a little innocent. His words seemed to be probing for something. Innocent? Qiao Jin frowned. Aren't you innocent? This kind of thing shouldn't be measured by innocence. Karma doesn't look at whether you're innocent or not. It's already difficult to extricate yourself from it. As I said, if your aunt doesn't leave the Feng family, she and her children will probably be very sad for a while. The Feng family is still holding on now because karma is slowly decaying. The next time it erupts, the Feng family won't be able to hold on. Song Yanqing frowned. I mentioned this, but, as an outsider, at least for now, he was an outsider. It was indeed difficult for people to accept his sudden request for a divorce. He had probably mentioned it, but he could not find a better excuse. His aunt did not blame him too much, but she did not understand. Because the man she married was at least not bad to her, and he did not have the bad habits of the Feng family's men. The two were truly in love. Qiao Jin also instantly understood Song Yanqing's difficulties. He thought about it and said, it's just that the glory is no longer there. For this kind of thing, even I can't measure the extent of the karma. As long as they are not involved in the Feng family's matters, there will be no fatal karma. Song Yanqing also understood, and his expression eased slightly. At least she had the support of the Song family. When the time came, if anything happened, it would be fine. Qiao Jin shook his head. Let's not talk about these things. I know you're also troubled. The Hurley family is here to cause trouble, so it won't be peaceful from now on. Don't act rashly. You can't expose your identity as a spirit master. Song Yanqing said gently, I know what I'm doing. He looked at Qiao Jin eating quietly with his head down and smiled gently. He early started to cause trouble as soon as he got off the plane. It was mainly because he killed the members of the spirit group. He wanted to vent his anger. Even if Qiao Anna and the others were not killed by the spirit group, it was because the spirit group did not protect them well. Of course, they did it secretly. After all, it was impossible for them to have a falling out openly. And Yu Xie and the others became the unlucky ones at the first stop. Chapter 498. Yu Xie had Hua Yangming as his support. Hua Yangming was also a spiritual type, so his perception had been greatly improved. When he brought the two of them to Qiao Jin's place, he felt that something was wrong. When they passed by an empty intersection, if he hadn't instinctively slowed down the car, the sudden explosion in front of them would have killed the three of them. When the three of them saw the sudden explosion in front of them, their pupils shrank. Yu Xie reacted quickly. He immediately reversed the car and stepped on the accelerator, making a turn and speeding back the way they came. Cao Yikai was shocked. What happened to us? Yu Xie's expression was grave. Someone wants to make a move on us. At this time, he subconsciously suspected that it was Qiao Jin who knew about the situation. However, Qiao Jin didn't have the strength to do so. It was also impossible for him to know that the spirit group was going to capture him. He Yarrow was in the spirit group now and couldn't leak any information. Then it had to be someone else. The spirit group would encounter a sudden attack. This attack was very likely to be launched by a hidden force that was opposing the spirit group. Some people wanted to maintain stability, while others didn't want to be ordinary. The spirit group also had opponents. Now, Yu Xie was thinking in this direction. The car drove in the direction they came from, making a sharp turn. Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai grabbed onto the car window to prevent themselves from being swayed because of the speed. Hua Yanming's face was pale. It could be an ambush. Who would know that the three of them would pass by here? There weren't many people on this road. Now that the road suddenly exploded, it would only be treated as an accident. However, they were spiritualists. They could faintly feel a trace of extraordinary power. It was definitely the work of a spiritualist. Bang! Another section of the road next to the car exploded. Because Yu Xie was driving fast, he almost missed the car by a hair's breadth. However, the rocks from the explosion still heavily smashed into the car window. The special car only had scratches on it, but the flames that brushed past the car still made the three people in the car tremble in fear. Damn it! Yu Xie's face darkened as he cursed. Someone leaked our whereabouts. Hua Yangming subconsciously refuted Yu Xie. It can't be the captain. The captain is in the spirit group now. How could he have leaked the information? Wasn't Yu Xie clearly suspecting He Yarrow? Cao Yikai also said, even if Captain reveals it, he definitely won't do it to kill us. The only thing he was sure of was that he had been ambushed. Yu Xie coldly said, what I said doesn't mean that I suspect her. However, someone must have leaked our whereabouts. The car sped forward. Yu Xie displayed his driving skills to the extreme, reaching a speed of more than 200 km per hour. There was no one around, so he had nothing to worry about. When they entered a road with cars, they felt that the threat around them had disappeared. Yu Xie heaved a sigh of relief and returned the car to its normal speed. Now, he didn't dare to rush towards Qiao Jin. He had to return to the spirit group as soon as possible and report to the higher-ups for an investigation. At this time, Hua Yangming had already taken out his phone and began to report to the spirit group. Assassinating a member of the spirit group was no small matter. To be able to do such a thing in the imperial capital, it was either extremely daring or an illegal organization. When they thought about how they had almost died in the hands of others, the three of them felt their hearts sink. Now, even the soul group was no longer safe. Chapter 499. Yu Xie and the others had just returned to the spirit group when they received news that the He Li family had arrived in the capital. However, they didn't tell the spirit group when they would arrive. They arrived a day earlier than the original meeting time. This surprised the spirit group and they didn't know what the He Li family was thinking. Now that Yu Xie had reported the news, the spirit group immediately found out that something was wrong. The He Li family had a history of doing things. Now that their family had been wiped out, they couldn't take it anymore, but it didn't mean that they could vent their anger on the Chinese. This matter would naturally be handled by the higher-ups. Yu Xie knew who had done it the moment he heard that the He Li family had arrived. When he returned and saw He Yarrow had a mocking expression on her face. You're back so soon? Qiao Jin is back too? Yu Xie didn't speak. Hua Yangming hesitated and said, Captain, we haven't arrived yet. We were ambushed on the way and almost lost our lives. Ambush? He Yarrow was surprised. Who would ambush you? It couldn't be Qiao Jin. If she wanted to do it, she wouldn't have spent so much effort. He Yarrow felt that Qiao Jin had the ability to do it without anyone noticing. She also said that Yu Xie wasn't worthy of her doing anything. Hua Yangming said, the He Li family has arrived in the capital. He Yarrow immediately understood. Although she was in the spirit group, she had just been removed from her position as captain. Therefore, no one had informed her. He Yarrow's face twitched. Looks like there's no need to discuss who did it. Hua Yangming. We don't have any evidence. Yu Xie snorted. You didn't hesitate when you suspected He Li. Why did you refute when you suspected Qiao Jin? You also don't have any evidence. He Yarrow couldn't help but roll her eyes. You're forcing me to make it clear. If you want to cause trouble for her, you can do it anytime. Who needs your help when I suspect her? If it weren't for some other reasons, she would have said that he wasn't worthy of her doing anything. Yu Xie pointed at her but didn't know what to say. He could only put his hand down angrily. Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai could only smile bitterly. They were all on the same team. It wasn't good to be at odds with each other every day, but they couldn't do anything about it. Yu Xie and He Yarrow weren't on the same page. They couldn't do anything. When the people from the He Li family arrived at the capital, they were not received by the spirit group. Instead, it was Ah Zhu from the Feng family. This time, the leader of the Hurley family was a blonde man with blue eyes. He looked very similar to Joanna. He was so handsome that he could take people's breath away. His eyebrows were bright, but his eyes always gave people a chilling feeling. His lips were like smiling lips, always with a friendly and charming smile. However, Ah Zhu knew that this person was extremely ruthless and powerful. The fact that the He Li family had sent him here meant that they wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Not to mention the problem of the plan, just Joanna's death alone was enough to appease the other party's anger. However, this had nothing to do with the Feng family. They only needed to do things according to the Grand Ancestor's instructions. Mr. Milo. Ah Zhu opened his mouth and spoke in pure English. The tall man named Miluo glanced at Ah Zhu indifferently and walked forward. Ah Zhu was not surprised by his attitude and followed behind him respectfully. Seeing her carrying a plate, Duan Yanru knew that she wanted to eat here. She hurriedly ordered her food and went straight to Qiao Jin's place. She sat down opposite Qiao Jin and said happily, Sister Qiao, why do I seem to see you here often? Was this the second time or the third time? Qiao Jin said, this is the road I have to take to get home. In other words, Duan Yanru might live nearby. Duan Yanru's eyes lit up. Great. My house is nearby. It seems we're quite close. Qiao Jin nodded. She was wearing a pair of disposable gloves as she tore the meat off the chicken wings. She looked extremely elegant. How could a beautiful girl be called a fairy when she tore chicken wings? Sigh, the world was really unfair. Chapter 501. Duan Yanru knew that Qiao Jin didn't like talking, so she didn't continue chattering. While eating, she chatted with Qiao Jin. When Qiao Jin was almost done eating, he took off his gloves and said, I'm full. She had ordered fried chicken wings and roasted chicken wings, leaving behind a pile of chicken bones. Duan Yanru's eyes widened when she saw how much she could eat. She reluctantly looked at Qiao Jin and asked, Big Sister Qiao, are you leaving? Qiao Jin nodded. Yeah, it's too late. I have to go home. She didn't want Qiao Fei to call her again. She kept thinking that she was dancing outside. Duan Yanru said, Big Sister Qiao is really a good child. I'm also going back after eating. Qiao Jin nodded. School is about to start. Study well. Duan Yanru, she watched as Qiao Jin slowly walked out. He finished his food in a few mouthfuls and also prepared to go home. However, she felt a little uneasy and subconsciously looked around. She didn't know where the dangerous aura came from. At this time, the traffic light was red. In a luxurious car parked there, A man looked at Duan Yanru with a faint light in his eyes. Formation Master? There were only two people in the car, him and the driver. The driver was also a foreign man. He glanced at him before looking away. It's a new face. Don't cause trouble. Don't forget what Miluo said. She's just a C rank. The man licked his lips and suddenly waved his hand. An indescribable energy rushed toward Duan Yanru. The driver frowned slightly when he saw him take action, but he didn't stop him. Duan Yanru felt her body go numb, and a chill ran down her spine. Just as the traffic light was about to turn green, she lost control of her feet and walked toward the middle of the road. What was going on? What was going on? She screamed in her heart. She couldn't control her actions. The traffic light was about to turn green. Wasn't she courting death? So many cars. Seeing her walk over stiffly, the man in the car who made a move had excitement in his eyes. Lucas, don't you think it's interesting to hit her? The driver's face darkened. If Milo finds out that you did something, he won't let you off. The man didn't care. What are you afraid of? It's just a C-grade array formation master. There's no evidence to prove that we did it. Lucas said, the current Huaxia is not the Huaxia of the past. Don't forget what the Emperor said before we came, all right. You are either Milo or the Great Emperor. It's boring, really, Lucas. Although he said that, he waved his hand, and Lucas's foot slowly lifted up with the clutch. Lucas was a little annoyed. The car drove forward. When the car in front saw a girl walking over, it subconsciously slowed down. After all, it was still in the starting stage. Their car was in the second lane. Even if they rushed over, they had every reason to say that they couldn't see it. The car suddenly sped up. Duan Yanru saw the dense traffic and the cars that were gradually approaching. Her face paled, and her body trembled. However, she couldn't control herself and walked faster and faster. Qiao Jin, who had already reached the subway station, sensed something and turned around. Her brows slowly furrowed. In front of her, the crowd was screaming, and the screeching sound of brakes rang out. It seemed to foretell a panic. Chapter 502. Whoosh. Just as a car was about to hit her, Duan Yanru saw the car make a strange turn. It seemed like it couldn't dodge in time, and like an arrow, it slammed into the flower bed in the middle. The front of the car was dented, and the two men in the driver's seat were dizzy. It seemed that they had lost control and bumped their heads. The man in the driver's seat shook his head, but he was still somewhat awake. As for the man in the front passenger seat, he fainted. Frightened by this sudden turn of events, the cars that were about to drive on all stopped. The green light had just started, and fortunately, it didn't cause a disaster. Only this car had a problem. The other cars quickly stopped, but the traffic would be congested for a while. Duan Yanru felt the bindings on her body being released. She looked at the wrecked car in horror and came face to face with the man in the driver's seat. She saw the shock in the other party's eyes, as well as a trace of anger. The drivers in the surroundings were already cursing Duan Yanru. Are you not looking at the car? You dare to walk on this road? Little girl, even if you want to die, don't drag others down with you. The green light is already green, not red. Oh my God, youngsters these days are looking for death outside, and they even harmed others. Fortunately, nothing major happened. Hearing the discussions in the surroundings, Duan Yanru's face turned scarlet, and tears welled up in her eyes. It wasn't her. She hadn't intentionally walked in this direction. She hadn't been able to control herself. It was as if she had been controlled by someone. She hadn't intentionally harmed others. This was the first time she had experienced such a thing. Being controlled by someone was already frightening enough. Now, she even had to bear the responsibility. Thinking of her parents' disappointed gazes, she didn't know how to explain herself. She stood alone in the middle of the road, shivering. Someone pulled her back with great strength and scolded her. You harmed others, and you're still standing there. Are you crazy? Little girl, you look like a decent person. Why did you have to kill others when you couldn't figure things out? What a sin, and a foreigner at that. Now, you're in trouble. There were even people taking pictures of her with their phones. Duan Nyanru subconsciously covered her face and burst into tears. "I'm sorry, it wasn't me. I don't know what happened to me. I didn't mean to walk in the middle of the road." She was only 18 years old, and her mind was still weak. She couldn't bear such a scene. "Have you lost your mind? Are you delirious from taking drugs?" Some people were suspicious, some were waiting for a good show, and some were holding their phones as if they had picked up big news. Someone went to check on the injuries of the two foreigners. At this time, Duan Nyanru felt someone gently pulling her. "I'm fine." The two simple words were like the warm sun in winter, slowly soothing her trembling heart and bringing peace to her. Duan Nyanru raised her head. When she saw Qiao Jin, she burst into tears. I'm sorry, big sister Qiao." She didn't want to implicate Qiao Jin. She sobbed and choked. "You should go." I'll deal with it myself." "How are you going to deal with it?" The girl's tone was indifferent. She swept her gaze over the crowd. The crowd instantly became strangely calm. Even the person taking the video had no idea why, but he subconsciously pressed the stop button. Qiao Jin's gaze gradually turned to the two foreigners. Chapter 503. Someone called the police, and the traffic police quickly arrived. When Lucas came out of the car, he was still in disbelief when he saw Duan Nyanru. But when he saw Qiao Jin, he felt as though someone had knocked on his head, and he became clear-headed. A peculiar chill rose from the soles of his feet. When the traffic police spoke to him, he subconsciously opened his mouth and said, "I'm fine." The traffic police were stunned. "Mister, shall we send you to the hospital first?" This was a special case, and Duan Nyanru's abnormal behavior would usually be investigated. However, Lucas didn't seem to want to pursue the matter. Instead, it was the beautiful girl beside Duan Nyanru who walked over and said, "Send you to the hospital first. We'll take care of the medical fees." Duan Nyanru nodded while crying. "I'll take care of it." But with Qiao Jin by her side, she subconsciously felt calm, and her crying gradually became softer. The police and ambulance rushed over, and they went to the hospital together. Lucas wanted to stop all this, but he couldn't resist the special enthusiasm of Chinese people toward foreigners. He insisted on sending Duan Nyanru to the hospital. This gave him a headache. When he saw the girl in a white t-shirt and jeans, his gaze became colder and colder. It was so cold that even he was trembling. On the way to the hospital, the police asked for their information. Even though Duan Nyanru insisted that she didn't know why she walked to the middle of the road, she was still suspected. The police said that she needed a blood test to rule out any abnormalities. Duan Nyanru clenched her fists, but she couldn't refuse. She could only say to Qiao Jin in a low voice, "I really don't know why. I couldn't control myself just now, and I was controlled by someone to walk to the middle of the road. I know." Qiao Jin nodded. Duan Nyanru widened her eyes in shock. "Big sister Qiao, you know?" Qiao Jin nodded and squeezed Duan Nyanru's wrist, indicating that she didn't need to worry. Duan Nyanru didn't dare to tell her parents because she was afraid that they would be worried. It was just that she didn't have the money to pay for the medical fees, so she hesitated for a long time. If her parents knew about this, they would definitely ask her what was going on. She didn't know how to deal with this matter, and they would definitely be worried. Perhaps this was not a small sum of money. Her family had even taken out a loan to buy a house. After thinking for a long time, Duan Nyanru could only say, "Big sister Qiao." Qiao Jin said, "I know what you want to say. They won't make you pay." Duan Nyanru was dumbfounded. "You won't make me pay?" It was because of her. Even if the other party was a foreigner, how could a foreigner be so warm-hearted? Qiao Jin only smiled. When they arrived at the hospital, the unconscious man was sent in for an examination. Duan Nyanru also went to check his blood. When it came to the issue of compensation, the police didn't mention it, so Lucas went to pay the bill himself. That was because he felt that the girl's gaze on him was cold. Moreover, they were the ones at fault. But sometimes, he couldn't stop it. Seeing him pay up, Qiao Jin's gaze softened. When Duan Nyanru returned, Lucas directly told the police that his friend was fine, and they didn't want to pursue the matter. They could just let the girl go back. This left the police dumbfounded. Are all foreigners beautiful and kind these days? Chapter 504. Of course, it wasn't because she was beautiful and kind. The police wouldn't know the reason. But since the person involved didn't pursue the matter, the police couldn't interfere. After confirming that there was no problem with Duan Nyanru's checkup, they could only give her a few words of advice. The gist of it was that she had to look at the lights when crossing the road in the future. If she encountered someone with a bad temper, she might directly bump into them. Even if something happened, they had to tell her to be more optimistic. That's right, they thought that Duan Nyanru wanted to commit suicide. Seeing how Duan Nyanru had cried so pitifully when she had come, they had spoken to her in an amicable manner. Duan Nyanru immediately nodded. She didn't dare to speak of her abnormality, because even if she did, the police wouldn't believe her. After the police left, Lucas was still guarding his friend. When he saw that Xiao Jin and Duan Nyanru hadn't left, he spoke in Chinese with an awkward smile. You can leave. It was just an accident, so we won't pursue the matter. My friend is fine. Xiao Jin stood before him with a smile that wasn't a smile. You won't pursue the matter? Didn't we say that we won't pursue the matter? Lucas's expression stiffened before sinking. What do you mean? Xiao Jin lowered her head. In the crowded corridor of the hospital, she said softly, it's all up to me when your friend wakes up. You're so brazen in the capital. Wasn't Xiao Anna's death enough to teach you a lesson? Lucas's eyes instantly widened. His reaction was too big, and he immediately stood up from his chair. He looked at Xiao Jin with a terrified expression. However, he was too tall, a head taller than Xiao Jin. It made people feel as if he would attack Xiao Jin in the next second. Why you? He gnashed his teeth. Clearly, since the girl in front of him had mentioned Xiao Anna, he believed that Xiao Jin had killed Xiao Anna. Xiao Jin smiled. Mr. Lucas, you're too agitated. She seemed to be reminding him of something. Lucas looked around and could only stiffly sit back down. Duan Nyanru noticed that Xiao Jin seemed to be saying something to her. Her reaction was huge. She knew that Xiao Jin was doing something. She didn't know what had happened, but Sister Xiao Anna seemed to know. Lucas looked at Xiao Jin. She was so pure and flawless. Yes, she gave him this damned feeling. But it still made people feel abnormally terrified. He realized that Joseph, who was lying inside, had really done something he shouldn't have. Miluo and the Great Emperor weren't trying to fool them. There was a huge problem in Huaxia. There were mysterious people chasing after them. If they continued to court death, they would be courting death. Who would have thought that he would end up in the hands of the main culprit? He couldn't resist at all. Xiao Jin said with a smile, I won't do anything. Just do what you need to do. She stretched out her hand and tapped the air. In the next second, a light that no one could see landed in Lucas's eyes. His eyes immediately went slack. When he blinked again, he saw Xiao Jin leaving with Duan Nyanru. It seemed somewhat familiar. Who was it? Chapter 505. When Milo appeared in the hospital, Lucas, who was a few years older than him, felt an indescribable sense of oppression. He didn't dare to look into Milo's eyes. He just lowered his head and said, Milo, I'm sorry. I didn't take good care of Joseph. Milo had green eyes that were rarely seen. His eyes were as clear as a cat's eye as he looked at Joseph, who was lying on the bed. His tone was elegant and low, but it was bone-chilling. What did Joseph do? Lucas touched his head and said, We had a small car accident. Joseph wanted to hit someone. When I tried to stop him, he touched the steering wheel and hit the flower bed. Unfortunately, he fainted. I remember you said that we can't cause trouble in the capital. Milo slowly looked up at Lucas. Although he was afraid of him, his eyes were clear. He wasn't lying. Milo lowered his head and looked at Joseph, who was lying on the bed. A trace of disgust flashed through his green eyes. I said that China is not the same as before. Don't make the same stupid mistake as Chow Anna. You did a good job. This idiot is lying here. He doesn't have to go anywhere. There was no emotion in his cold voice. In the next second, Joseph, who was unconscious on the bed, suddenly screamed. It was as if he was being strangled in his sleep. His face turned red in an instant, and he let out a hua-hua-hua sound. It was as if he couldn't breathe. When the device that was checking on Joseph sounded the alarm and attracted the attention of others, Joseph heaved a sigh of relief. It was as if he was alive again. Milo glanced at him indifferently before his tall and slender body turned around and left. Lucas was shocked. Milo was more heartless than anyone thought. Even if Chow Anna was his sister, Milo didn't have any expression when he heard that she was killed in China. Among the siblings, Milo was the only one who didn't care about them. If it wasn't for the Emperor's order, Milo wouldn't have been willing to come here. Lucas followed him fearlessly. He seemed to have forgotten something, but he couldn't remember it in the blink of an eye. Halfway, Milo suddenly said, "Who was he going to hit?" Lucas quickly said, "It was a young girl from China. I don't know who she was." Milo said, "Give me the surveillance video." Lucas, "Okay, I'll have someone send it to you right away." When Xiao Jin led Duan Yanru out of the hospital, he said, after returning, "Stay at home and rest. Don't go anywhere until school starts." Duan Yanru cautiously asked, "Just now, was I targeted by a spiritual reader?" Xiao Jin had told her about the psychic sorcerer. She also knew that she was an array sorcerer, but there were other array sorcerers and wizards. Xiao Jin nodded. "Those two deserved it, so they won't ask you for compensation. They don't remember me, but someone might target you. There's no danger, so it's best if you don't go out. If there's anything wrong, I'm here." Her indifferent words gave Duan Yanru a sense of security. "Thank you, big sister Qiao. If it wasn't for you, I really wouldn't know what to do today." Speaking of this, she hesitated for a moment. "Actually, didn't they miss just now? Did you save me?" After all, he was a formation master, and he was bound to feel the effects of being controlled. Because she clearly saw that the driver inside did not turn the steering wheel. The car tilted on its own. Chapter 506. Duan Yanru had been frightened back then and hadn't thought too much about it. But now, she realized that Xiao Jin couldn't have returned so quickly. Xiao Jin smiled. "Could it be that I'm going to watch you die in front of me?" Moreover, she was Duan Ruyan's little sister. She couldn't do such a thing. Duan Yanru's eyes turned red. "Big sister Qiao, I don't know how to thank you." She couldn't repay the favor of saving her life. She didn't know what she could do. Xiao Jin said, "There's no need. Be obedient, and I'll send you back now." Duan Yanru obediently nodded with a nasal voice. Xiao Jin had sent her home. Since the matter had been resolved, she didn't want her parents to be too worried, so she didn't mention it. It was just that her parents were unhappy that she had returned so late. Duan Yanru found an excuse. Her mother nagged as she went to make supper for her. Duan Yanru looked at her mother's white hair and couldn't help feeling sour. She felt that it was fortunate that she had met Xiao Jin. Her big sister had met her and was free. She had met her and was saved. In this lifetime, it would be difficult for her to repay Xiao Jin's kindness. She stood by the window and saw the back of the person downstairs. Xiao Jin walked elegantly and quickly. In the blink of an eye, Duan Yanru couldn't even see her back. She felt that she had to slowly become stronger. If she didn't become stronger, she wouldn't even have the chance to take revenge for her big sister. She had to repay Xiao Jin. When Xiao Jin returned home, she saw Musilian playing games on the sofa. He was cursing the jungler for being a fool. Xiao Jin didn't understand those words, but she felt that the jungler was cursing Musilian the same way. "Where did you go?" Xiao Fei jumped out and walked over to Xiao Jin. He sniffed and frowned. "Why do I smell disinfectant and fast food?" Xiao Jin, as an array master, her nose was not as sensitive as Xiao Fei's. Musilian grasped the main point and pointed at Xiao Jin. "Mom, she must have secretly eaten chicken wings. She eats junk food." Xiao Fei waved his hand. Go. Musichu came out of the kitchen with a bowl of soup and asked, disinfectant. Xiao Jin went to the hospital. She then gestured to Xiao Jin. Come here. Auntie just made some soup. Drink some to warm your stomach. The auntie he was referring to was the cook at home. Xiao Jin walked over. Xiao Fei pulled her and whispered, Jin, did you go to the hospital? Otherwise, where would the disinfectant smell come from? She thought of something and turned pale with fright. Did you go to the hospital because your stomach hurt from eating chicken wings? Her logic was perfect. Xiao Jin was a little helpless. No, something happened to my friend. I accompanied her to the hospital. Xiao Fei was stunned. Lord Song went to the hospital again? Xiao Jin. No. You have other friends. Musilian immediately jumped up and watched the show. Does Brother Yanqing know about this? Xiao Fei, listen to your vulgar tone. What's wrong with Jin making friends? Didn't she make a lot of friends? Why did your friend go to the hospital when something happened to her? Xiao Jin drank the soup slowly. She went for a blood test. There's nothing wrong with her. She had picked out the main points and only concealed some. Xiao Fei said, Oh, is it a girl? Xiao Jin nodded. Yes. Xiao Fei was satisfied. Our Jin finally knows how to make female friends. Musilian lost interest when he heard that it was a girl. He rolled his eyes and lay down to continue scolding the jungler. Chapter 507. Musichu did not ask anything. He scooped a bowl of soup for himself and Xiao Fei. Seeing that he was not around, Musilian urged, Brother, I want to drink too. Musichu's tone was cold. Go get it yourself. Musilian, ? He sat up. Do you still remember that I'm your twin brother? Musichu, scram, go get it yourself. Musilian, fine. He had just finished his game and reported the jungler with hatred. He threw down his phone and went to the kitchen to get the soup. It was mainly because the auntie was busy. Otherwise, the young masters would not have the chance to do such a thing. When Xiao Jin was drinking the soup, she noticed some gifts on the table beside the sofa. She asked casually, Who sent these? There were guests at home again. However, given the status of the Mu family, there were often guests and she was too lazy to sense them one by one. Unless she noticed them, she would know instantly. Xiao Fei looked at the gifts and rolled her eyes before looking at Xiao Jin. She was a little hesitant. She thought about her lines. Do you still remember the last time Mom sent you a picture of a boy when she was playing mahjong? Xiao Jin looked at her with a faint smile. Oh! Xiao Fei coughed. His mother brought him over tonight. You weren't at home, were you? Xiao Jin understood. Xiao Fei said carefully, I didn't say much. I just said that you weren't at home and she said that she would like you to meet him when you have time. Xiao Jin, I won't meet her. Xiao Fei. Then I won't meet her. She insisted on keeping the gift. She said that it was the first time she had brought her son over and it was a gift from her son. I couldn't reject it. Xiao Jin, since it's a gift for you, just accept it. Musilian laughed at the side. Ayo, how could I accept it? He's here for you. You're already 20 and not young anymore. It's time for you to date. I think that young man is not bad. He's energetic and handsome. Even though he's not as handsome as me, it's rare to see someone as handsome as me. Xiao Jin suddenly asked Xiao Fei, Qi Lian's military ID has been processed. Musilian. His smile suddenly disappeared. Xiao Fei immediately changed the topic. Yes. His plane ticket is in 3 days. I was just about to tell you about it. Xiao Lian, you're leaving. Since let's go eat hot pot as a family, let's celebrate it. No, I'll give you a farewell party. Mu Chilian. Haha. Grave face. Xiao Fei thought about it and slapped her thigh. Sure. We'll eat hot pot tomorrow and seafood after that. Qi Lian, you can order whatever you want the day after tomorrow. Since you're leaving, I'll fulfill any request you have. Musilian, I don't want to join the military. Xiao Fei, your father's ID has been processed for you. If you don't go, I'll break his legs. It was as if Mu Chilian's death knell had been rung. He took a deep breath and sniffed. He said with incomparable sadness, "When I come back in 2 years, do you still remember that you have a son named Mu Chilian? Is there still a Muzilian in this family?" Qiao Fei patted his head. "What nonsense are you talking about? You'll always be my son. Once a son, always a son. Muzilian, was this supposed to be said to you? Qiao Jin, Qi Lian, have a safe trip. Muzilian, did he think he was about to die? Was he human? No one loved him. Hell was empty. Qiao Jin was in the human world." Chapter 508. Muzilian was about to leave, but the family still prepared to celebrate, to hold a farewell party for him, so that he wouldn't be too unhappy when he left. Even though he wasn't very happy right now. The next day, the family did as Qiao Jin said and went to eat hot pot together. They chose a hidden high-end hot pot restaurant, and the whole family was there. Qiao Fei gave the menu to Qiao Jin, and Muzilian drank his juice unhappily. Mu Zhenming instructed him earnestly, "After you go to the army, receive good training and come back in 2 years. Your things will be kept for you." Muzilian thought about how he couldn't do anything for 2 years. He couldn't play disco, play games, and even broke up with his new girlfriend. He was so sad that he wanted to refuse. Seeing Qiao Jin looking at the menu excitedly, he got angry. Mu Chiji was really busy. He was the only one who kept calling at the table. After Qiao Jin finished ordering, Qiao Fei took the time to mention something to Qiao Jin. "Let's go see your Grandpa Ji tomorrow." Qiao Jin glanced at Qiao Fei indifferently. "Tomorrow?" Qiao Fei smiled and said, "Just see Grandpa Ji alone." She didn't want Qiao Jin to see such a terrible person. Old Master Ji had called to ask to see Qiao Jin and had even arranged to meet outside. Since the other party had already done so, Qiao Fei could not bear to see an old man like him suffer. Fortunately, Qiao Jin didn't refuse and nodded. "Okay." Muzilian wanted to take one last bite of the melon before he left. "Qiao Jin, that Chai Yueli hasn't been chased out yet?" Qiao Fei rolled his eyes at him. "What nonsense are you talking about? No matter what, she's Ji Qiue's wife. As long as there's no divorce, why would she be chased out?" At the same time, she gave him a look, indicating that he should not mention this mother in front of Qiao Jin. Even if Qiao Jin's attitude was firm, it was inevitable that he would feel vexed or have other changes if he kept mentioning it. Mu Chiji also knew about the Ji family. He hung up the phone and nodded. "Qiao Jin, you can visit Grandpa Ji more often when you're free." The rest of the Ji family couldn't do it, but Grandpa Ji wasn't in the wrong. After all, she was his biological granddaughter. It wasn't a big deal for her to meet her. "Qiao Jin, I know." Mu Xiangshan interjected, "Today is a farewell party for Qi Lian. Let's not talk about anything else." "Muzilian, how I wish you would mention it. You don't have to stab me in the heart." He was indignant. At this moment, the door of the private room was opened by the waiter. It was time for the dishes to be delivered. However, at this moment, a group of people who were passing by happened to see the Mu family in the private room. "Qiao Jin." This pleasantly surprised and familiar tone, the Mu family members immediately looked up. Qiao Fei's eyelids twitched. He turned around and saw Chai Yueli and Ji Qiue, as well as their son, Ji Fanjing. Oh, this magical family was actually in the mood to eat hot pot. Qiao Fei finally understood what it meant to touch a sore spot. It was all Muzilian's fault. He had just mentioned it when they bumped into each other. Chai Yueli only had Qiao Jin in her eyes now. When she saw them eating here, she was pleasantly surprised. She stepped in and said generously, "I didn't expect you to be eating here today. What a coincidence. I was thinking of finding time to visit Qiao Jin." Compared to the dispirited state she had been when she came to the Mu family, she had regained her glamorous appearance. Obviously, she had settled the matter with the Ji family for the time being. Chapter 509. Ji Qiue also stepped through the door. When he saw Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhenming, he greeted everyone cautiously. Hello. The handsome Ji Fanjing followed behind them with a slight frown. Especially when he looked at Qiao Jin, his eyes flickered. He never thought that this girl, who he had only met once, would be his blood-related sister. Moreover, it was such a melodramatic thing. What he didn't expect was that Qiao Jin was unwilling to return to the Ji family. She didn't even want to acknowledge her parents. Many people in the Ji family, including him, thought that Qiao Jin would choose to come back. In the end, other than the blood test report, he didn't even see Qiao Jin. At this moment, when he saw the happy scene of the Mu family, he suddenly understood. Why was she unwilling to come back? Since they were already in front of them, apart from the puzzled expressions of the younger generation and Mu Zillian's gleaming eyes, Mu Zhenming stood up and greeted them very politely. Mu Qizhi took the lead and greeted them. No matter what, they had to at least give face to the elders. Only Qiao Jin didn't say a word. He didn't even have any expression when he saw Chai Yueli. She lowered her head and focused on picking the meat she wanted to eat. Chai Yueli didn't feel awkward and smiled sweetly. What a coincidence. I'm going abroad with Fanjing tomorrow. Before we leave, let's have a meal together. At this juncture, she was still willing to bring Ji Fanjing abroad. Perhaps Ji Fanjing really treated her as his biological mother. Naturally, it wasn't something that could be washed away just because they weren't blood-related. After all, she had personally raised Ji Fanjing for 20 years. When Xiao Fei heard this, she felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart. She glanced at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's cold appearance didn't seem to care about the current situation at all. He didn't even look at the Ji family. He only focused on the meat in his pot. The Mu family didn't know what to say. Instead, Mu Zillian smiled and said, "Auntie, it's not appropriate for us to have a family gathering. I wish you a pleasant meal and a safe journey." These words were particularly appropriate for Mu Zillian to say. Mu Zhenming pretended to reprimand him. "Qilian, how can you say that?" Chai Yueli's smile faded a little. She was already extremely thick-skinned when she stepped through the door. If she still didn't know what was good for her and insisted on staying, she wouldn't be able to show her face as the madam of the Ji family tomorrow. Ji Fanjing's unhappy voice urged her from behind. "Mom, let's go." The Mu family had clearly rejected him. Naturally, Ji Fanjing would not let his mother stick to their cold buttocks. As far as he was concerned, Chai Yueli had been true to him for 20 years. She had never let him down. Naturally, he still treated Chai Yueli as his mother. Ji Qiue also pulled Chai Yueli a little uneasily. "Yueli, let's go." His temperament wasn't very stable to begin with, and he was especially afraid of people like Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhenming who did things swiftly and decisively in the business world. They always had the aura of a high-ranking person that he didn't have. Qiao Jin ignored them. He didn't like this daughter who didn't know how to be polite. She didn't want to return to the Ji family. The Ji family didn't lack her. Chai Yueli still looked at Qiao Jin with a smile and called out, "Jin." Qiao Jin then raised his head. His gaze was calm. "What's the matter, Madam Chai?" In one sentence, he clearly distinguished between close and distant. Chai Yueli's heart turned cold. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, Qiao Jin would say something even more heartless. Chapter 510. This daughter really resembled her a lot. She gritted her teeth and could only restrain her smile. "It's nothing. Take your time." After saying that, she smiled at Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhenming magnanimously and left. The waiter served the dishes and closed the door. Mu Zillian couldn't help but sigh. "Look, I still have to solve this Azura arena." Mu Zichu said coldly, "Yes, that's the only thing you did right." Mu Zillian, are you praising me or mocking me? Mu Zichu, both. Mu Zillian, 2 years later, you don't know me, and I don't know you. Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. She really did settle the Ji family when she went abroad tomorrow. This Chai Yueli is really not simple. Pingan is also old and muddle-headed. Mu Zhenming sighed. Don't always hope that something will happen to others. After all, she is Fanjing's mother who raised him for 20 years. Even if you don't want to see her, you have to see her face. Uncle Ji might have noticed this too. After all, they aren't in the country often. Qiao Jin, my meat is cooked. Everyone, see, the person in question didn't care at all. Outsiders like them shouldn't worry too much. When Chai Yueli and Ji Chiue stepped into the private room, their faces were dark. This wretched girl didn't give them any face at all. Ji Chiue saw her expression and felt a little uncomfortable. Why do you care so much about her? She's now treating herself as a member of the Mu family. If she doesn't want to come back, then so be it. Chai Yueli shrieked. You make it sound so nice. Have you forgotten what your father said? Ji Chiue immediately shut up. The reason Ji Pinggan wanted Chai Yueli to stay was simple. When he passed away in the future, he would only leave a portion of his shares and assets to Chai Yueli and himself. The rest would go to Ji Fanjing and Qiao Jin. After all, Fanjing was raised by them. Giving it to Fanjing was giving it to them. However, Qiao Jin took half of it, which made Ji Chiue a little uncomfortable. However, Ji Pinggan directly went to make a notarized will and put it in the bank. Other than himself, or when he died, no one could get it. Even Ji Chiue was helpless. His condition for not divorcing Chai Yueli was even simpler. Chai Yueli said that she had a way to deal with Qiao Jin, even if Qiao Jin didn't listen to them at all. Ji Chiue only felt a little uncomfortable, but he had no idea how to get the part that belonged to Qiao Jin. Since things had already happened, there was nothing else they could do other than compromise. Who asked the old man to reveal Qiao Jin's existence when he was still alive? Thinking of this, Ji Chiue still felt a little indignant. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, why would all of this happen? In the future, all of Dad's money will be ours and Fan's. Are you blaming me now? How good do you think you are? Chai Yueli wasn't someone to be trifled with. She immediately scolded back. Back then, Ji Chiue had taken a liking to her because of her beauty. Even though she was old now, she was still peerless. He was used to being scolded by her. Chai Yueli's mistress came knocking, but no one knew that she was more arrogant than anyone else in the Ji family. After all, the three branches of the Ji family were separated. In Ji Pinggan's place, no one could suppress Chai Yueli. Now that Ji Fanjing's matter had exploded, Chai Yueli's arrogance had been reduced. Chapter 511. Ji Chiue shut up after being scolded by her. He was a playboy by nature, but he was also highly educated. He was not good with words and could not win against Chai Yueli. Ji Fanjing heard them arguing as soon as he came in. He was a little annoyed and said impatiently, "If you don't want to, can't you just discuss it with her?" He was not too bothered by the fact that half of his assets had been given to him. After all, she was Chai Yueli's biological child. He could give his grandfather's money to whoever he wanted. Chai Yueli looked at him. She was embarrassed and angry, but she had to control herself. "Mom, who is it for? Isn't it for you? You have to know that this money was all yours. Your grandfather gave half of it to Qiao Jin without saying a word. Don't you care?" Ji Fanjing asked her, "Isn't Qiao Jin your biological daughter?" He was Ji Chiue's biological son, but not Chai Yueli's. Sometimes, Ji Fanjing could not understand Chai Yueli's thoughts. Chai Yueli immediately shut up. She looked at Ji Fanjing and was speechless. Ji Chiue had something to say. "She's not our daughter now. She's the Mu family's daughter. If she knew that grandfather left half of the money for her, the money would still belong to the Mu family at such a young age. The Mu family is smart. She was deceived by them." Chai Yueli mentioned some things about the Mu family, causing Ji Chiue to think that Qiao Jin's stubbornness was all instigated by the Mu family. Their goal was to get the old master's assets. Now that the old master had made such a decision, he was even more certain. Unfortunately, he did not have any real power and did not dare to refute the old master. He mentioned the Mu family's intentions and was scolded badly by the old master. He almost wanted to hit him with a broom, so he did not dare to mention it anymore. The old master was old, so he was deceived by the Mu family. Ji Fanjing did not want to argue with them. He had always been spoiled and had a bad temper. "Are you still eating? If not, then leave." Hearing that he was angry, Ji Chiue was scared. "Eat, eat, eat. You're leaving tomorrow. Have a meal with Dad before you leave. I won't be able to see you until next month." Chai Yueli rolled her eyes angrily and said, "If only you were a little bit more capable, Fan Zheng and I would not have ended up like this. It's all thanks to Fan Zheng." In the end, the ball was kicked to Ji Chiue again. Ji Chiue didn't dare to refute. He sat down to eat with them, but he felt that he was really a pushover. Little did they know that Xiao Jin, who was next door, had clearly heard their argument. Old man Ji left half of his assets for him? She paused when she heard this, but she didn't say anything. It did not matter anymore. After eating hot pot, the Mu family went for a walk at night. They had driven here and suggested that they take a walk together. After all, Musilian was going to join the army and school was about to start. They didn't know when everyone would be present. However, Mu Zhenming and Mu Chiji were really too busy. After dinner, they left them alone and went to the company for a meeting. Only Qiao Fei took Qiao Jin, his siblings, and the old master for a walk along the street. They walked slowly along the river and looked at the scenery of the city. Qiao Fei held Qiao Jin's arm and couldn't help but sigh. "Sigh, I haven't accompanied you and your siblings like this in a long time." Mu Xiangshan, who was holding a thermos in front, suddenly said, "Yes, you always go shopping with your sisters." Qiao Fei. Chapter 512. Qiao Fei blushed. "Dad, how can you say that? Don't I spend time with the kids? They're the ones who don't want to accompany me." She felt wronged. Their big family was a sight to behold. Not to mention the twins Musichu and Musilian, just the mother and daughter, Qiao Jin and Qiao Fei, attracted a lot of attention. The passers-by who were also out for a walk whispered to each other, "Their genes are too good. The boys are handsome and the girls are beautiful. The old man looks so imposing even holding a thermos. Big family, big family. Oh my God, I really like the boy on the left. He has a cold aura. Oh my God, he's really my favorite. Is the girl a goddess? Oh my God, where did this little fairy come from? They're both humans and have the same facial features. How can there be such a big difference?" Qiao Fei was very proud when she heard the discussions around her. She said to Qiao Jin happily, "Look, Mom and your Uncle Zhenming have good genes. You all look so good." Musilian added, "Yeah, look at how beautiful Auntie Chai is. Otherwise, how could Uncle Ji be so smitten?" Qiao Fei, she rolled her eyes. As the family walked, a foreign man suddenly appeared in front of them. The man sat on a bench by the roadside with his long legs crossed. He looked up at the moon in the sky. He had blonde hair and green eyes. He was simply smoking. His movements were neat and elegant, but they couldn't hide his elegance. Many people around them looked in his direction. Some passers-by even took pictures of him. Even Qiao Fei was excited when she saw him. "Oh my God, Jin, look, that handsome foreign guy in front is my favorite." "Qiao Jin, Musilian, does Dad know about this?" When Qiao Jin saw the man, there was a hint of coldness in her calm expression. Milo turned around and came face to face with Qiao Jin. Their eyes met, and a hint of coldness flashed through his jade-like eyes. However, he remained silent and did nothing. The corners of his lips were smiling, as if he was smiling at someone. However, if one looked carefully, one could see that under the dark green eyes, there was a coldness without any warmth. When Qiao Jin and the others passed by him, Qiao Fei couldn't help but turn to look at him. Qiao Fei said, "Jin, did you see that?" Qiao Jin, "Yeah, I saw it. It was just SOSO. Qiao Fei, you've been fed too much by the Lord Song." Everything he looked at seemed ordinary. Qiao Jin lowered his eyes and thought about Song Yanqing. Then, he said, probably, Song Yanqing was still the best. Furthermore, this person was Milo. She knew it. Qiao Anna's brother. She didn't know the other party's purpose, but now that he was here, Qiao Jin was sure that he was here for her. He saw her family. So what? As long as he did anything, Qiao Jin would never let him leave the capital alive. Milo, who was behind them, gradually retracted his gaze when he saw that they were far away. He stared coldly at the girl who came up to ask for his phone number. The other party's smile gradually turned stiff, and finally, she left with an ugly expression. When no one else came up, Milo got up and left. The emperor was right. There were crouching tigers and hidden dragons in Huaxia City. Qiao Anna and the other idiots didn't die in vain. Milo's eyes flashed coldly. That was why he hated all idiots who dragged him down. Chapter 513. The next day, Qiao Fei brought Qiao Jin to see Grandfather Ji. Grandfather Ji asked her to meet Qiao Fei outside. When he saw Qiao Jin, Grandfather Ji was a little emotional. "You're already so old. You have your own ideas about many things. I don't need to force you. In the future, I'll be satisfied if you can come out and drink tea with me." He didn't mention what he left for Qiao Jin, and Qiao Jin naturally didn't ask. Qiao Fei smiled and said, "You're too polite. Qiao Jin has time. It's the summer vacation now. I'll ask her to come and see you more often." Anyway, Ji Qiue and Chai Yueli, those two troublesome people, had already left. There was no need to care so much about other things. Qiao Fei still wanted to know how Chai Yueli dealt with the Ji family, but she was too embarrassed to ask. After hearing her words, Grandfather Ji took the initiative to mention this matter. He looked at Qiao Jin and sighed. "I've thought about letting Qiue and Chai Yueli divorce, but I thought that you're already so old. They've been together for so many years," and Fan Zheng pleaded for Chai Yueli. "Forget it. If they come to bother you in the future, you have to tell me." He didn't hide the fact that he left his assets to Qiao Jin from them. Presumably, the couple would think of ways to deceive Qiao Jin. Ji Pinggan didn't want to see Qiao Jin worry, so he didn't tell Qiao Jin about his will. In fact, many people in the Ji family didn't understand his actions. After all, Qiao Jin had been raised outside for 20 years. Even her biological mother didn't care. As a grandfather, why should he care? However, when Ji Pinggan saw Qiao Jin's cold personality, he felt a little sorry for this child. Sigh. "No, no." Qiao Fei waved his hand and answered for Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin paused for a moment and took the initiative to pour a cup of tea for Ji Pinggan. Ji Pinggan looked a little excited and started the topic that every parent had to talk about. "You're not young anymore. I heard that you'll be in your third year next semester. Other than the language department, do you have anything else you're interested in? You can learn some financial knowledge. In the future, you can come to the Ji family to help. Grandpa will give you a company to practice." These words were very generous, indicating that Qiao Jin would not have to worry about the future. Qiao Fei didn't stop her. She looked at Qiao Jin. She had her own ideas. "Qiao Jin, I'm not interested in these things. In the future, my family will have Qi Ji and Qi Chu. Your Ji family will also have Ji Fanjing. You don't need me." Ji Pinggan thought that he was concerned about Ji Fanjing, and his face darkened. "He has his, and you have yours. We have nothing to do with each other." Qiao Jin shook his head. "I'm just not interested in business. You don't have to be like this." Seeing that she was really not interested, Ji Pinggan sighed. "Up to you." After that, he asked, "Are you in a relationship?" Qiao Fei coughed. Qiao Jin's expression was calm. "No." Ji Pinggan was relieved. "Oh, you don't have anyone you like?" Then the Song family. He had seen Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin together before. Besides, there were rumors that Song Yanqing had only been with Qiao Jin before. If there wasn't anything fishy about this, old Master Ji would suspect that there was something fishy going on. "Qiao Jin, he's my good friend. Why did every elder suspect her relationship with Song Yanqing? Was she being too careless?" Qiao Jin finally began to think about this problem seriously. However, after thinking about it, What did other people's thoughts have to do with her? She and Song Yanqing were friends. There was no need for her to ignore her friends because of others. What were they? Good friends. Oh, old Master Ji believed him anyway. Chapter 5:14. He said earnestly, "Anyway, you're a little girl and you're so pretty. You're also my granddaughter. Xiangshan is also your grandfather. Take your pick, there's no rush. It's fine even if you don't marry." Qiao Fei was stunned. How could he teach her so well that it was fine even if she didn't marry? Qiao Jin had said that he didn't want to get married. If he said that, wouldn't her thoughts be even more deeply rooted? It was too scary. The unrestrained doting of the elderly. Qiao Fei felt that this couldn't do. Absolutely not. Qiao Jin laughed. She looked obedient and smart when she smiled. It made one feel happy just looking at her. Ji Pinggan sighed. It's such a blessing to have a child like you. Unfortunately, Chai Yueli didn't know how to appreciate it. Back then, she had acknowledged Qiao Jin immediately. How could such a thing happen? Short-sighted. Yet, she gave birth to such a daughter. He felt a little complicated when he thought about this. Humans were indeed two-faced. He chatted with Qiao Jin about their childhood. After all, they hadn't met for long. There were countless things to talk about. After lunch, he played 5-in-a-row chess with the old man for a while. Qiao Fei and Qiao Jin first sent Ji Pinggan back to the Ji residence. They didn't enter the house and then returned to the Mu residence. On the way, Qiao Fei sighed. Actually, it's not easy for old Master Ji. When one was old, the most important thing was family happiness. Although she wasn't very smart, she knew why Mu Xiangshan was willing to come back. Ji Ping'an's son and daughter-in-law were in such a situation. His grandson was also abroad all year round. In fact, he was often alone. If Qiao Jin wanted to visit her, it wouldn't be a big deal. He could just treat it as fulfilling the obligation of being related by blood. Besides, if Qiao Jin objected, she wouldn't have come with Qiao Fei. However, Qiao Jin didn't say anything. Qiao Fei felt that it was too awkward to talk to herself. She asked Qiao Jin, "What do you think?" Qiao Jin, "I guess." Qiao Fei, she was a little sad. "You used to be so obedient, but now you don't like to talk to me." When Qiao Jin opened his mouth to say something, Qiao Fei said, "But it's okay. You're Mommy's daughter. Mommy will love you no matter what you become." After saying that, she began to laugh happily. Qiao Jin stared at Qiao Fei. He swallowed his words and sighed in his heart. It was pretty good. For the past few days, Qiao Jin had been staying at home until Musilian boarded the plane and embarked on the journey to join the army. Although he couldn't come into contact with technological products for 2 years, it wasn't that bad. He could call home every week to report that he was safe. It was just that no one knew what kind of changes he would experience when the time came. After Musilian left, the house was indeed a lot quieter. Qiao Fei still felt that it was good that Musilian was gone. No one at home would bother her. However, when she saw Qiao Jin and Musichu, she felt that she had nothing to do other than go shopping with her friends and play mahjong. It was all because the children were too mature. They were so young, but each of them was as mature as an old person. As a mother, she was more worried than anyone else. On the 3rd day after Qi Lian left, Qiao Fei began to miss him. Therefore, she asked her friends to go out for a beauty spa again. She didn't know if it was because Milo and the others had come to the capital recently, but the Ling group had been much quieter and didn't cause any trouble. Chapter 5:15. Wanyan Wei and Wanyan Shi were in the police station, and it was confirmed that they wouldn't be able to get out. Even Wanyan Shi was going to be sentenced for bribery. The trial was already in progress. Because of the Song family, the Wanyan family didn't pursue the matter after a few attempts. Naturally, they didn't look for trouble with Qiao Jin. This wasn't in line with the Wanyan family's style. Something was bound to happen to them. Qiao Jin also felt that the Feng family's collapse wasn't far away. Qiao Jin soon found out about this opportunity. When Duan Nyanru was in a car accident, she placed a formation point on Lucas. Lucas forgot what Qiao Jin did at that time, but he didn't know that he had become Qiao Jin's spy. After so many days, Qiao Jin knew their whereabouts clearly. He also knew why Mi Luo wasn't in a hurry to come to China for Qiao Anna's matter. They had a plan. River Town. What did River Town have? Qiao Jin suddenly thought of the book written by Zhongli Wuyo that she had read. River Town was an ancient city with a long history. There were countless legends in River Town. It was also a place that countless spiritual readers liked. Naturally, this included formation masters. What did a formation master need the most? Formation points. Formation points could be captured and controlled by oneself. This included the strongest formation used by other formation masters. After understanding the formation points, one could also imitate them. Every formation master was unique. Just like Qiao Jin, it was also like the cursed formation on Su Xiu's body. There was a limit to the number of formation points a person could obtain in their lifetime. Rivertown had many mausoleum formation points left behind by formation masters. However, the mausoleum formation points were usually left behind by a formation master. It could be left behind for others, or it could be something that could take your life. Mi Luo and the others came to China for this thing. Qiao Jin looked at the location of Rivertown on the map and fell into deep thought. After a long time, she slowly smiled. It seemed that she had to make a trip to Rivertown. However, she wasn't in a hurry. They hadn't made a move yet. Compared to working hard, she preferred to finish things at the end. Qiao Jin booked a plane ticket to Jiang City. He guessed that he would be delayed for a few days. At the dinner table, he told Xiao Fei that he was going to Jiang City. Xiao Fei was surprised. Going to Jiang City? Traveling? Qiao Jin nodded. You can say that. I've never been there before. I'm going to take a look this time. Xiao Fei said happily, I'll go with you. Qiao Jin, I like being alone. Xiao Fei, her daughter had grown up and was beginning to despise her. Sob sob sob. Qiao Jin didn't know if he should tell Song Yanqing that he was going to Jiang City. Unexpectedly, Song Yanqing called that night and went straight to the point. I'm going to Jiang City in 2 days. Qiao Jin raised an eyebrow. You're going on a business trip? Not really. For the first time, Song Yanqing wasn't talking about a business trip. He revealed something in a calm tone. I had a dream. I dreamed of a place. The location was Jiang City. Since a soul master of speech dream had a location, it wasn't an ordinary dream. This was a precognitive dream. A soul master of speech could predict the future by observing the past. This power was gradually showing. Now, Song Yanqing still needed to dream. In the future, he wouldn't even need to dream. As long as he wanted to, he wouldn't know anything. It was just that he didn't know if he would grow to this stage. Since he didn't get much useful information from this dream, it didn't matter if he said it. Qiao Jin was interested. What dream did you have? Chapter 516. At this time, he suddenly had a dream, and it was about Jiangcheng. Qiao Jin didn't need to guess. It was most likely related to the place where Milo and the others were going. Since this dream gave Song Yanqing a hint, it meant that there was something related to Song Yanqing. Not every spiritualist would get a hint, but he wasn't sure if this hint was for Song Yanqing alone or for all spiritualists. Song Yanqing didn't intend to hide it from Qiao Jin, so he said directly, I only saw one thing, a fan, closed. An ordinary folding fan. I don't know where it is, but my intuition tells me that it is in Jiangcheng. Qiao Jin said decisively, that fan is useful to you. You should go. Coincidentally, I will go too. Oh. Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly, and the corners of his lips curled up. You will go too? Qiao Jin said, Milo, the Feng family, and the spirit group will go to Jiangcheng soon. You won't have this precognitive dream for no reason at this juncture. What they are going to do is most likely related to your dream. I want to go and see the situation. Since you are going too, I will follow you. Just in case. Song Yanqing actually didn't expect Qiao Jin to go. Since Qiao Jin wanted to go too, he agreed. He said gently, I will ask R to book a ticket for you. Qiao Jin, I have already booked it. Song Yanqing paused for a moment and respected her opinion. Do you want to cancel and go with me, or do I change to your flight, or do we go together? Qiao Jin, I will refund the ticket. Song Yanqing had work, and it was difficult to coincide with Qiao Jin's schedule. It was better to refund the ticket and go with him. Song Yanqing's expression became more gentle. Okay. Qiao Jin hung up the phone and turned to look at the umbrella in the corner. She felt that she needed to bring the umbrella this time. Maybe it would be useful as long as it rained there. It was almost time for her to start school. She couldn't fool around anymore. Song Yanqing helped her unblock her Weibo account and cat treasure shop. Because she suddenly disappeared for a period of time, her customers were concerned about whether something had happened to her. There were also anti-fans who jumped up and down saying that she must have been banned because of feudal superstition. In fact, they guessed it was just that the reason for banning her was untenable. She had only been unsealed for 2 days. She only received news and didn't accept any business. Now that she was going to Jiang City, she picked a few fortune-telling businesses. Then, she saw a fortune teller. After a pause, she replied to the other party. Today, I don't accept business. The other party was obviously not surprised that she had guessed it, and quickly replied online. Anonymous buyer XX. What Ling group? She was a dead person today, don't accept to the group. Seeing that she was so certain, there was no point in continuing to pester her. This person was just a little unwilling. Anonymous buyer XX. Don't. I didn't dare to be distracted at 12:15 last night before I snatched your business. You can't do this to me. Are you discriminating against the spirit group? Today, you were the only one who placed an order at 12 o'clock last night. Also, you're right. I discriminate against the spirit group. Anonymous buyer XX. It's rare to see a seller with such an arrogant tone. Anonymous buyer XX. Don't be like this. At least make 1,000 yuan. I just want to ask a simple question. Today, okay. Anonymous buyer XX. Do I have any hope of getting a promotion and a raise? Today, no. Anonymous buyer XX. I know. Fuck your whole family. Chapter 517. Ji Yuizhou was a member of an ordinary team in the spirit group. He had been working there for a few years. According to his qualifications and ability, he was qualified to be promoted to captain, but he hadn't been promoted. This time, the leader finally found him and told him to give him a task. Go to Jiang City, follow the foreign devils from abroad, and then come back. He could be promoted and get a raise. The specific content was not disclosed, but with so many people going, Ji Yuizhou definitely wouldn't think of anything bad. Looking for Qiao Jin to read his fortune was purely because he had nothing to do. He knew about Qiao Jin's reputation and knew that this person had a rare prophetic ability. He didn't expect the other party to tell him that he had no hope of promotion and a raise. Wasn't that the leader lying to him again? It wasn't the first time similar things happened. Every time, it was just a lie. Ji Yuizhou was very tired. Qiao Jin saw this person's fate. It wasn't that he suddenly went back on his words, but he quickly realized that he was a member of Jiang City's mission this time. Not only the Feng family went, but the spirit group also contributed more than 20 people to go with them. However, a group of wizards followed an array master. It was obvious who were the cannon fodder. This time, even the Feng family was going to die, not to mention the people of the spirit group. However, it wasn't that there were no variables. Qiao Jin closed the chat interface and got up to wash up. This was a big variable. Not only did Song Yanqing have a hunch, but Qiao Jin also had a hunch. Jiang City had part of what she lost. What did she lose? What she lost was only her memory. Jiang City was an ancient civilized city. It was July, and the heat didn't seem to spread to this land. When a large group of people arrived at this ancient city, it was drizzling continuously. The weather was a little cloudy, and there was a faint chill that gradually penetrated into people's bones. Arzu followed behind Milo, squinted at the drizzle falling from the sky, and said slowly, "It's raining in July. It's not a good sign." Milo's tone was indifferent. "Then let's turn it into a good sign." Arzu's expression was stern. He glanced at Milo and didn't speak. Behind them, many spiritual psyche masters followed. In addition to the array masters brought by Mi Luo, there were also people sent by the spirit group to escort them. Most of them were talents trained by the Feng family in the spirit group. Most people didn't even know what their mission was. They just needed to listen to Arzu. Zhongli and his sister, as well as the siblings from the Wanyan clan, were among the crowd. Zhongli Peining hugged her arms, then turned to Zhongli Xiu and said, "Brother, do you feel cold? I remember that the south is also very hot at this time." Zhongli Xiu took out an umbrella and placed it on her head. His expression was gentle. "It's just a change in the weather. It's very normal." Wanyan Zhenzhen also said to her brother Wanyan Yi, "Brother, what do you think they came here for? What kind of powerful spiritual psyche master is there in Jiang City that we need to come here with great fanfare?" Wanyan Yi shook his head. When the group of people were gradually picked up by the vehicles, a plane slowly landed. Not long after, a pair of celestial beauties walked out. The girl had delicate and neat long curly hair. The cuffs of her white shirt were slightly rolled up. She wore a pair of aqua blue jeans. She looked fresh and neat, and she seemed ethereal like the drizzling rain. The man next to her had a peerless appearance that was hard to describe with any adjectives. He was wearing a white coat, and his temperament was like a cool breeze. When he turned to look at her, there was a hint of warmth in his eyes. "Are you cold?" Chapter 518. Qiao Jin shook his head. "I'm not cold." She looked up at the sky and said softly, "They've already gone over. We have to act as soon as possible." Song Yanqing's lips curved gently. "So you think that my dream and their goal here are the same place?" Qiao Jin nodded and muttered, "There's no such coincidence." Song Yanqing nodded. The two of them went to the parking lot from the VIP passage. They met some people along the way. When they saw Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin, they couldn't help but be amazed. A large group of people were holding cameras. They were obviously not ordinary people. They looked like staff members who were filming something. When Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin appeared, the cameras in their hands automatically locked onto Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing. What kind of immortal couple was this? They exuded an aura that couldn't be found in the entertainment circle now. They were noble and elegant. Song Yanqing sensed the changes in the cameras and raised his eyes slightly. His indifferent gaze landed on those people and an invisible pressure spread out. The cameraman quickly turned the cameras in another direction. If they didn't agree, even if they captured a good-looking passerby, they would have to censor it. Otherwise, what if they sued you for violating portrait rights? It wasn't until Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing walked away that the group of photographers started discussing. "The couple just now is much better looking than the one we're going to meet this time. This is a godly face. Isn't this the godly face in the entertainment circle?" "I don't think so." People were most afraid of comparison. The godly face that was famous in the entertainment circle was not worth mentioning in front of the real godly face. Sure enough, there was always someone better out there. This episode passed quickly. Song Yanqing came to Jiang City. Naturally, there were people in charge of receiving them. The hotel had been arranged. The driver sent them to the best hotel in Jiang City. Mi Luo and the rest hadn't taken action yet. They weren't in the city. Once they reached Jiang City, they took a bus to their destination. Qiao Jin was not in a hurry. When she arrived at the hotel, she first stayed in Song Yanqing's room. Outside the window, it was still drizzling. In the misty rain, Qiao Jin saw the shadow of a tall mountain in the distance. Jiang City was an ancient city. The modern facilities and buildings in the city center had a hint of ancient style. Among the skyscrapers, there were raised eaves that could be seen everywhere, forming a special landscape. Looking towards the south, there was an endless shadow of a tall mountain peak. It looked majestic and beautiful, surrounding Jiang City in the middle. That was Jiang City's scenic spot, the Southern Spirit Mountain. The Southern Spirit Mountain was a mystical place. The mountains were majestic, and the terrain was steep. A few of them had been developed as tourist attractions, but there were still some places that had not been developed because they were too complicated. There were many legends about the Southern Spirit Mountain. Mi Luo and the others were heading towards the Southern Spirit Mountain. However, the Southern Spirit Mountain was very big. As for where exactly they were going, they had yet to receive any news. They seemed to be very cautious. Before they reached their destination, even Mi Luo's trusted aide, Lucas, didn't know. Qiao Jin blinked and looked in that direction. Song Yanqing's tall and slender figure walked over slowly and stopped beside her. Following her gaze, he smiled and said, "You've been looking over there for more than 10 minutes. Did you notice something?" Chapter 519. Qiao Jin nodded. She didn't hide it from him, but her tone was very soft. Maybe. She had a special feeling. The entire city gave her a familiar feeling. Jiang City had existed for more than 1,000 years. Perhaps this was a place she had appeared in before, so she felt familiar. 10,000 years had passed, and the world had changed greatly. Some places she had stayed in had moved according to the section, and even became overseas. In such a big country, there weren't many places that she felt familiar with. Therefore, she was sure that there was something hidden here. In Zhongli Wu's records, Jiang City was a city that was especially loved by spiritual readers. It was because there were many legends about spiritual readers left behind here. Song Yanqing stretched out her finger and pointed at the place where Qiao Jin was looking. The place in my dream should be there too. Spiritual readers had a premonition, and Song Yanqing could feel it. Something in the mountain range was attracting her. Qiao Jin glanced at Song Yanqing, then lowered her head and thought for a moment. I'm not sure if you, as a spiritual reader, had a premonition. If Milo and the others also chose the same place as you, I have a feeling that it's not their intention. Something inside should appear at the right time. Song Yanqing, the folding fan in my dream? Qiao Jin nodded. Spiritual readers won't have unrelated dreams. That folding fan must be very important to you. Song Yanqing's eyes were deep. You said that you don't understand spiritual readers, but I think you actually know them very well. Qiao Jin, she opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. After a long time, she slowly said, I don't know. She really didn't know. She could talk about spiritual readers easily, but if she thought about it carefully, she really didn't understand. This kind of strange thing seemed to be related to her lost memory. She couldn't tell Song Yanqing that she had lost her memory for the time being. Song Yanqing pursed her lips and smiled faintly. I'm just saying. Maybe you've come into contact with it somewhere and just forgot. Qiao Jin, she raised her eyebrows slightly. A spiritualist's intuition was truly accurate. Song Yanqing continued, you said that you controlled a member of Milo's team. Are they rushing over there now? Qiao Jin nodded. Yes, they've been in the car. I don't know how long it will take for them to reach their destination. It had been 2 hours since they got off the plane, and Milo's team had been on the move. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes. What do you think that thing will do to me? Qiao Jin, I'm not sure. What use would a fan have? A psychic's ability was never attached to a vehicle. It was very likely that it was just an ordinary folding fan. However, ordinary words would not appear in Song Yanqing's dream. They had secrets. But what was it that was related to him? With that thought in mind, Qiao Jin blinked again. They've stopped. 2 hours was just the right distance between Jiang City and the Southern Spirit Mountain. It seemed that their target was really the Southern Spirit Mountain. Song Yanqing, okay, we'll go over when you say it's suitable. Just as he finished speaking, his phone rang. For a busy person like him, he would never stop working. He glanced at the caller ID and calmly picked up the call in front of Qiao Jin without a care in the world. His voice was elegant. Sister. Chapter 520. It was his sister, Song Suyu. Qiao Jin hadn't seen Song Suyu since she saw her in the hospital last time. She knew that Song Yanqing's mother wasn't in good health either. Song Suyu had been accompanying Song Yanqing's mother abroad for treatment and recuperation for the past 2 years. It was rare for her to come back. Occasionally, the siblings would call each other. This was the first time Qiao Jin had met them. Yanqing, I heard that you're not in the capital, and you didn't bring our GE? Song Suyu's voice was a little puzzled. Why are you going to Jiang City alone? Since he was here to do something, it wasn't appropriate to bring someone along. Song Yanqing didn't bring our GE. Qiao Jin's presence was enough. Song Yanqing looked up at Qiao Jin indifferently and said naturally, I'll go with Qiao Jin. Song Suyu, she had heard about her brother and Qiao Jin being together several times. However, it wasn't like they hadn't beat around the bush. Song Yanqing had said that they were just friends. Song Suyu knew that Qiao Jin was very strange. She was also Song Yanqing's savior, so she couldn't say anything. Hearing this, she said helplessly, Okay, I'll tell you. Mom and I will be back next month. When the time comes, you can invite Miss Qiao to have a meal with us. Song Yanqing smiled slightly. She's right next to me. I'll ask her. Qiao Jin heard it, so she didn't let Song Yanqing ask first. She nodded and said, Okay. Song Yanqing's smile became gentler. She agreed. Song Suyu's voice was as gentle and elegant as Song Yanqing's. Okay, I'll arrange it then. With that, she hung up the phone. Song Yanqing took back his phone and said, Ever since you saved me, my mother has been wanting to thank you properly. But because of her health, she's been recuperating abroad. It's also thanks to you that I made her much better. The ability of a spirit master of speech was just that good. It was perfect for him to use it on his mother. He knew his limits, so what he wanted was for his mother to gradually get better. After this period of time, Song Yanqing's mother's health had improved, and she could return to China next month. Qiao Jin softly replied, her eyes were locked on that side as she added, We might have to go over at night. You need to rest for a while. He didn't know what the situation would be like then. Now that he had time, it was best for Song Yanqing to rest for a while. Song Yanqing nodded slightly. Don't worry. It wasn't a problem for him to stay up all night. After Qiao Jin finished speaking, he returned to his room. He stared at Qiao Jin's departing figure and chuckled after a while. Mi Luo's group seemed to have stopped at the foot of the southern Spirit Mountain. They were going to move at night. Other than Mi Luo and Arzu, probably no one else knew what they were going to do. The spirit team was even more confused. They thought that they were here to capture someone. The southern Spirit Mountain was very large. There were several peaks. Apart from the ones that had been developed, there were also some that hadn't been developed. The one that they were interested in was an undeveloped one. Logically speaking, they couldn't enter this place. But with connections, things were easier. Arzu and the others found a local who expressed his willingness to row a boat and take them in after midnight. Because the place they were going to was at the foot of a mountain, it was completely blocked by a river. Because they couldn't find any entrances or viewpoints, it wasn't open to tourists. A group of locals lived at the foot of the southern Spirit Mountain. They built a guest house and earned money from tourists. Their lives were quite good. This time, the one who was going to take Mi Luo and the others in was a local. Seems like, it makes sense, that's right, if he couldn't go back, wouldn't he not be able to get a promotion and a raise? Jiu Ijo shuddered. Don't scare me. How is that possible? This is just a normal mission. Colleague, it's hard to say. Bringing so many people for a normal mission. I don't know how tricky it will be. Jiu Ijo, damn it, he was completely flustered. Right at this moment, Milo and Arzu came out of the room. Ji Yuijo and the others only knew Miluo's name and that Azu was a member of the Feng family. Other than that, they knew nothing about this mission. Everything was done by the group of foreign devils in front of them. That was a little better. Chapter 522. The southern Spirit Mountain was steep, and the scenery was beautiful. Overlooking the entire southern Spirit Mountain from the top, it gave people a sense of grandeur. If one woke up in the morning and was at the top of the southern Spirit Mountain, it would be like being in the clouds, giving people the illusion that they had ascended to immortality. However, very few people knew that the scenery at the bottom of the mountain was just as spectacular. However, at night, this steep mountain peak was hidden in the dense fog, and only a vague outline could be seen. Between the two mountain peaks, there was a very wide river. The river flowed quietly, and looking forward, it was as if the fog had blocked the view. The mountain peak was too big, and it was impossible to see the whole thing clearly. Other than the people who lived here, the surroundings were very quiet. Sound seemed to be absorbed by the mountain peak, and not even echoes could be heard. If one was alone here, other than the beauty, there was also a faint sense of horror. At the riverside ferry, there was a small boat. It was a boat made of wood, and looked very old. There was only one local on the boat, and he was wearing a thick coat. He shivered and urged, "Gentlemen, please hurry up. It's already so late, and I want to go home early." If it weren't for these people's generosity, he would rather die than go to work in the middle of the night. The Southern Spirit Mountain was a famous mountain, but it also hid many legends that were passed down by the locals. Most of the stories didn't sound very good, especially the bottom of the river that they were going to. It was empty during the day, and it was very quiet at night. There were no roads at all, but there was a very small cave in the water. In the past, the local government thought that it was a special passage, but after a few meters, they found that there was no road, and so they gave up. But sometimes, when they passed by, they would hear the sound of opera. It was a woman's voice that was full of sorrow. It was very pleasant to hear, but it made people shiver. They didn't know where the voice was coming from. But this voice was only heard occasionally, and it didn't spread much. It was only told to tourists as an interesting story. Anyway, no one could pass through there, and they didn't know if it was real or fake. Arzu and Melota got into the boat, and Lucas followed Milo. There were 4 people in this group, and one of them was a member of the spirit group. He was the leader of a small team, so he needed to know some things. The boat was big enough, but it could only accommodate 5 people. The boatman swayed the boat and rowed it away. The people on the shore watched as the boat slowly moved towards the center of the lake. In less than 2 minutes, the boat disappeared into the house. Not even a trace of light could be seen, as if it had never appeared. Someone was puzzled. Was there such a thick fog when we came here during the day? The others shook their heads. I didn't pay much attention to it. The Southern Spirit Mountain has always been foggy. That being said, it was quite scary to look at in the middle of the night. They still remembered that they had turned on their mobile phone flashlights when they went in, but they couldn't see clearly because of the fog. Langjun Tilda. All of a sudden, Ji Yuijo heard a sorrowful and lingering female voice from an opera. He shuddered and subconsciously looked around. Which one of you is watching the opera? Everyone in the spirit team stared at him. His colleague beside him said, "When we came here, we already said that we can't look at our phones when we're on a mission. Who's going to watch an opera? Are you crazy?" Chapter 523. Ji Yuijo. He instantly felt that something was wrong. The sound just now seemed to have come from an empty space. It didn't seem like the sound that came from a phone. It drilled straight into their ears. Apart from the itch, there was also an inexplicable chill. Ji Yuijo swallowed his saliva. "I think I heard wrong." His colleague reminded him, "Look at the eyes of the foreigners in front. Don't provoke them." Ji Yuijo, Mi Luo and the others sat on the boat. The boat slowly moved forward. However, because of the fog, they could only see some water. They couldn't even see the rocks beside them clearly. Arzu suddenly frowned. "Don't you feel that the fog is getting thicker?" The boatman immediately laughed. "That's normal. Southern Spirit Mountain is like this at night. When it rains, the fog is very thick. When you look at it during the day, the scenery is so beautiful. It was just that they had never seen it at night." Mi Luo just looked ahead. It was as if he could see a special shadow in the thick fog at night. After a while, he said, "If there's an abnormality, it means that we've found the right place." He said it in English. The boatman couldn't understand. He muttered that this foreigner knew how to appreciate the beautiful scenery of Huaxia. Arzu also felt that Mi Luo's words made sense. However, he felt as if there was a stone pressing down on his heart. It was so heavy that he couldn't breathe. It wasn't a good sign for a formation master to have this kind of intuition. However, now that they had come with Mi Luo, Arzu couldn't say anything. If they wanted to get the thing this time, it would be disastrous. The boatman's speed was average. After about half an hour, the boat kept moving forward along the river and entered the center of a few mountains. There were steep mountains on both sides. During the day, it must be very magnificent. However, the fog covered everything. They couldn't see anything clearly, until Mi Luo suddenly said, "We're here. To the right." Arzu immediately said to the boatman, "Stop the boat and look to the right." The boatman was shocked. "Where are we? There's still a river on both sides. There's no place to dock." Mi Luo turned around coldly. The boatman was so scared that he trembled. His hands didn't stop moving. He started to move the boat to the right. However, there was really no shore. There was only a dark entrance to a cave at the bottom of the mountain. When the boatman saw it, he immediately said, "This really isn't it. It's just a concave cave. It's just a few meters away. It's not a cave." The entrance to the cave was very low. If a person wanted to go in, they would have to lower half of their body, or else they would hit their head. If the water level rose, the entire cave would be flooded. Mi Luo said coldly, "Draw it in." The boatman, "What kind of weird fetish does this foreigner have?" However, since he had taken the money, he had to do it. Since the other party didn't believe him, the boatman decided to let him see for himself. He wouldn't cry until he saw the coffin. When they reached the mouth of the cave, all of them pressed their bodies down, or else they would hit the roof of the cave. According to the boatman's memory, this cave was a concave cave. It was only a few meters away, and one could see the bottom at a glance. He really wanted to ask that person to take out his phone to see if it was just a few meters away, but Mi Luo had already taken out his phone. They even prepared a flashlight and shone their phones inside. The boatman was almost scared to death. Apart from the water, there was clearly a huge cave. However, it was dark and bottomless. Only the sound of water could be heard faintly. It wasn't at all like in his memory, where he could see the bottom from a few meters away. Chapter 524. How is that possible? The boatman shivered as he felt a wave of cold air coming out from his head. Seeing that, Milo was not surprised. He simply looked at Arzu and said in a cold voice, "You found the right place." Arzu nodded his head and turned around to point at the boatman. "Continue rowing inside." No. The boatman instinctively felt that something was amiss. He had clearly been here before. He clearly remembered that this place was just a cave. It was only a few meters away from the bottom. This was not a big cave entrance at all. If there was a cave entrance down here, the country should have known about it long ago. However, nothing happened. The boatman subconsciously thought of some bad rumors and his face turned pale. He waved his hand and said, "This is a little strange. Why don't we not go in?" However, these people would not listen to him. Arzu's lips curled into a sinister smile as he said, "Draw." That one word caused the boatman's heart to tremble. He had no choice but to continue rowing forward. However, his legs had begun to tremble uncontrollably. The cramped cave entrance was only 2 meters long. After 2 meters, they moved closer to the deep cave entrance. Suddenly, everything became clear. After entering the small cave, they found that the interior area was very big. There were rock walls all around and it looked like a natural cave. The river flowed from the middle all the way to the mouth of the cave. Both sides of the mouth of the cave were riverbanks. The boatman recalled that this was clearly not the case when they first came here. It was too dark. Even with the light from the flashlight, they could only see that the mouth of the cave was very big. The two sides of the river were filled with trash from the river and a rotten smell. In short, it did not smell good. The boat slowly moved forward. When they reached the mouth of the cave, they found that this place had formed a natural barrier. The height of the mouth of the cave was just right above the surface of the water, blocking off the flow of the river. In other words, the mouth of the cave was empty and they could directly enter. Arzu and Milo were the first to go ashore. Even though they were standing at the mouth of the cave, they could not clearly see what was going on inside. The unknown meant danger. Arzu and the others were not as relaxed as they appeared on the surface. No one could say for sure what was inside the cave. Additionally, they had not sensed any danger. They only felt an inexplicable sense of oppression. However, they could not show it. Most importantly, Milo did not seem to be feeling anything. Arzu couldn't help but wonder how strong this person was. They got off the boat and stepped into the cave. The entrance of the cave was wet and sticky, as if they were stepping on some kind of mud. In short, it was a very unpleasant feeling. Lucas and the other captain of the spirit group were a little uncomfortable. Milo's expression was calm. "You can let them in." Everyone took out their phones. Arzu frowned slightly. There's no signal. The lack of signal was within their expectations. After all, this was not an ordinary place. Arzu looked at the boatman. "Row out and let them in now." The boatman thought to himself, "You're still coming?" However, when the boatman saw the oppressive aura coming from these people, he gulped and nodded obediently. "Forget it for now, as long as I can get out, it's fine." What the hell? He wanted to call the police. How could there be a cave here? It appeared out of nowhere. It was too scary. He propped up the wormwood and used a speed faster than when he came to paddle out. Chapter 525. Luo looked at the time, then looked at the dark cave and said, "Let's go in first." Arzu was a little surprised. "Aren't we going to wait for them?" He frowned and felt that this was not good. Where the array point was, there would usually be an array formation. Those array masters were not born kind and would not wait for people to take things away. Usually, they would set up a fatal array. Arzu had experienced similar things several times, and many people had been sacrificed each time. Otherwise, he would not have called the people of the spirit group. And this time, they did not know what kind of array formation was in this place and who was inside, so they could not judge how dangerous it was. Luo, it's just at the edge. Arzu could not go against his wishes. After all, he was the Great Emperor's subordinate. Arzu thought of the Great Emperor's instructions when they came, gritted his teeth, and said to the captain of the spirit group, "Let's go." He could order the people of the spirit group, but only he could control the people brought by Luo. Lucas' eyes flashed, but he did not hesitate to walk in front of Luo and open the way for him. The light was too dim, and they could only tell that it was a cave, but they did not know how long it was. Even the light of the flashlight was swallowed within 2 or 3 meters, so it was impossible to know the exact route. Even if they were array masters, they could not relax and walked forward slowly. After walking for a short distance, suddenly, a moist river breeze blew over. It was cold, but it felt like a person's breath on their face, giving them goosebumps for no reason. In such a dark environment, one after another, ethereal opera sounds could be heard. Langjun Tilda by the Green River, the flames of war reached the sky. The war has been for several years tilde one after another, a woman sang in an operatic tone, as if she was telling a story. Everyone heard it, and the expressions of Arzu and the captain of the spirit group suddenly changed. Luo's eyes gradually narrowed, and there was a deep look in them. The words were not clear, and they could only hear the first 2 sentences, which did not sound like a good word. This proved that there was indeed something inside. They continued to walk forward, and other than this ethereal voice, there was no other strange movement. They walked like this for more than 10 minutes, and as they got closer and closer, the voice suddenly disappeared. They walked to a door. It was indeed a door. Even though it was covered in seaweed and moss, one could still see its appearance. There were also traces of age and rust on the door. The copper ring on the door was in the style of ancient huaxia. It was as if someone would open the door from the inside with just a light press of the brass ring. Arzu said in a deep voice, "It should be here." Milo said, "It's too simple." Arzu snorted and said, "Maybe he's just waiting for you inside the door." Although the captain of the spirit group who followed them had some doubts in his heart, he was a member of the Feng family, so he tactfully didn't ask anything. Mi Luo glanced at the old gate and said indifferently, "Let me take a look first." Although he said that, he didn't push the door open. The red dots in his eyes flickered, and he pointed his finger at a few places. It was as if an invisible force had seeped into the door. Then, he was gently bounced back. Mi Luo's eyes narrowed. Since the formation could not penetrate, it meant that it could not be seen, which proved that this was the place they were looking for. It was just that what was inside was something that even he couldn't figure out. The great emperor had been spying on this place for decades, and now, the time had finally come. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.